Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the first day of legal cannabis for recreational purpose in Canada. Are you recreating Cannabis-ly today, Ed? Cannabis-ly?
Good morning.
Good morning. That sounds like an early morning. Did you do a big hot knife hit this morning?
No.
Big rip off a bong?
Yeah, rippa.
Rippa. Yeah,
no,
so
it's
today
all good. It's all good.
It's good. You were out on the town last night?
Till about 9-ish.
9-ish? That's a little late for us, old fullers.
Yeah, well, considering I was thinking midnight or 1.
Quite the festivities out there last night, though.
Was there?
Yeah, oh, it's insane. The bud drop, all the other things that I didn't quite make it to.
You experienced them vicariously.
Well, I'm going to, as I watch them on the video today, because our intrepid team from 4 East Media went out and caught footage of all of the parties. Now, we've run into a slight delay in publishing this stuff because the companies involved would like to view the footage before it's published, because there was a little bit of effusiveness in the air last night. People were doing things that they probably wouldn't want to be seen doing in public.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, so people were a little...
They let their hair down.
Were they, what is it, when you, is it flout the law? Were they flouting the law?
No. No, they were in full observance of the law.
Okay.
Yeah, but
wow.
yeah, good night of parties. And so today we've got a ton of guests that you would expect us to have on the show on a day like this. We have Mike Gorenstein's going to be here from Cronos.
Yeah. Anybody new on the show today? New? Yeah.
Well, actually, Howard Glassman is going to be here. He's also known as Humble and or Fred. I'm not sure which. And if I had my cheat sheet in front of me, I'd be able to tell you, but there is no cheat sheet today.
No cheat sheet today.
No, it's the longest day of continuous broadcasting we're ever going to do, but we have no cheat sheet, so we're just going to be making things up as we go along. Who else do we have here today? Let's see. Anyways, it's going to be a very busy day. We're going to have some clips from the parties. We're going to roll to some of our best cannabis grow operation site visits, just to keep the time filled. But right now, I propose that we, oh boy, that thing's still happening with my computer. Isn't that exciting? I propose that we look at some of the market action today, because it's, let's just say that it's
a great idea.
It's a bit of blood in the streets here.
Yeah, it seems as though the sell-off that started 15 minutes into yesterday's historic day. Well, today I guess is the historic day. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get the sell-off seems to have continued.
Look at that. Red.
Wine.
Here we go. Red wine.
Yeah, look at this. Wow, we got another 8% here on the big boys.
Yeah. Well, but that's to be expected. This is the news upon which you sell off. Buy the mystery, sell the history. And here it is, once again manifesting its ugly self in the form of people taking their profit off the table. But you can't blame them. I mean, look at this chart. The stocks have gone up. Yes, there we go.
Blood in the streets.
Another blood in the streets day.
That's
blood in the streets day. But yeah. I want to see what companies are doing well today.
I was astounded to see that Aurora, which is a very large company, basically tripled in price in the last 2 months, from 5 to 15.
Well, that's because they were our client.
Yeah. and yeah.
Now we're about to do the same thing with, I don't know, another company that might be our new major client, our new flagship client.
Wow.
But that's...
Aurora's down $2 today.
Sorry?
Aurora's down to 12.
Yeah, well, there's, everything's down. Everything's down. Let's see how Tilray is doing. Tilray, the American bellwether. Oh, boy, that stock is so overpriced, if you ask me. $150. Now they've locked in the value because they've done that financing at that valuation. And it will be interesting to see. Look at that, $149 a share, USD.
Yeah.
Like, that's not taking it too hard today, down 5.87%. But I guess the whole sector is moving more or less in lockstep.
This one's also hard to short too, I think. Like, it's not exactly like a lot of the stock's still very tied up, isn't it?
Yeah, most of it. In November, there's the first
Now,
tranche.
Tilray just went by at 144, down 13.
Yeah. Okay, so the little acceleration in the sell-off happening right now.
Yeah.
Boy. Let's see what's going on in our... So none of the large caps are having an up day. Let's go look at the small caps. And on the small caps page, let's see.
See, Weed MD just going by at $1.85, down 13, 14.
Benchmark Botanics. This is the one that bucks the trend regularly, but nobody knows what it does. Have we had these guys on yet? You know what? I'm going to go to their symbol page and see what the latest news is. Now it says results of AGM. Okay. Oh, and they found themselves a CEO. That's always helpful. That would make the stock go up. Let's see, Mr. William Ying. Oh, and Mr. Haifeng Liu. Okay, and Mrs. Jin Quang. So this must be a Benchmark Botanics. Okay, interesting.
And based in probably Vancouver.
Yeah, that's a Vancouver number, all right, 604.
Canopy going by in the States. No, that's in Canada.
Yeah.
Down 330. Yeah. Well,
but that's not bad. Like 330, like
5%, 5 times 6, 5%.
On the day of a major sell-off, it's not bad. So Benchmark Botanics. So that's interesting, eh? There's only 2 stocks up of all of the small caps, of which there are, let's see, how many small caps do we have on this list? Well, not that many. We really have to rebalance this index. It's not accurate.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Let's go take a look at our CSE darlings.
Okay. Let's.
Whole sector's down 5.02% on the CSE listed companies. FSD's down 4 cents. That's not a surprise. Everything's.
There's the TER down again, probably on light volume, down $1, down 8%. Yeah.
See if any of these are actually in the green. Benchmark Botanics is a CSE listed. Aphria Growers, well, one's looking more like a shell than a company. Tidal Royalty up a penny to 21 cents. There's one that's been sucking hind tits since the show got started. Hopefully we'll be able to pull a rabbit out of the hat there yet. Wildflower Brands up 4 cents. Empower Clinics, we know what that's going to be. Cannex up a couple of cents after they announced yesterday that they were not proceeding with the jetty extracts. So we're going to probably roll the jetty extracts site visit video that we did today.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that should be exciting.
It was the best crew that we had for a site visit video, or the best gear we had, I should say, not the best crew. All the crews are awesome.
Looks like HEXO's down about 7%. HEXO.
Suniva, $5. Suniva announced that they had engaged Canaccord to consider strategic alternatives after they closed a $25 million bought deal financing. How's that for? How'd you like to be in on that? What? We're not doing this anymore? What did I invest in?
We'll pay you some fees.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, so as usual, there are some signs
is
of life.
Gormley coming on today?
No, he's going to be here tomorrow. He got booked up.
Okay.
So he'll be here tomorrow. We'll have Steve Gormley from Juju.
Yeah.
Or International Cannabrands on tomorrow at some point. We have Nick Bodie is in town from Galani Gold. And we're going to try to get him in the studio this afternoon around 1 o'clock. I don't know if you've been watching the price of gold action.
Oh, I watch it like a hawk.
But it's showing signs of a serious reversal.
They say that the speculators are so short, and they've increased their short bets, and that it could cause a short squeeze, because if it starts to go up, they're going to cut to cover. Yeah, gold looks interesting here.
Yeah. Are you in any gold stocks?
Well, you know, I still own some golden.
Golden horseshoe. Golden ring.
And they publish great news and the stock drops. It's a real conundrum to me.
Well,
paradox.
The paradox. Can you imagine a situation where the marijuana stocks go into a prolonged correction?
Yeah. And the mining stocks go up.
And the price of gold takes off, gold and copper take off, and suddenly we got ourselves a mining market.
And then what do we do?
Then what are we going to do?
Start a new company.
Well, these are going to be mining
indexes. How about Midas Gold?
Well, there is a company called Midas Gold.
You own it.
No, I don't. I don't own a share, actually. I always looked at it and thought, well, I should just go buy some of that stock just so I can say, yeah, I own a gold company again. But
Namaste just traded at 221. Yeah, this is not the kind of day that.
Well, the thing I like about this is it's an orderly sell-off. It's not a panic run for the hills sell-off. It's a profit-taking sell-off, if you ask me. I think everybody's thinking, okay, this is the last major visible value catalyst that's sector-wide.
If you're long, let's say you stepped in and you bought Aurora at 15 the other day.
What kind of clown would have done that?
Well, somebody bought some stock there, or else I wouldn't have traded there.
That's right.
However, you're probably thinking, oh yeah, it's an orderly sell-off. I feel good about my 20% impairment.
Yeah, well,
I'm just saying, if you don't own it, you think, it's orderly. But if you own it, it's painful.
Now that legalization is here, the interesting thing is that we will stop valuing these companies on future speculative value so much and start to value them on actual financial performance, starting in, well, maybe not Q1 2019, because that's not going to be a fully reported quarter with the laws taking effect October 17th. But by Q2 next year, if these companies haven't started to really pile on serious revenue with healthy EBITDA, then that's when I think you're going to see the abdication of faith sell-off that would result in a major correction, not just a minor one. So,
right.
That's why we got to keep one foot in the mining market, because confluence of circumstances could easily make this a different kind of market.
Yeah, well,
Suzanne, darling, do you have a sheet that tells us what's going on? Oh, beautiful. There we go. Thank you, Alex. All right, so 10:30 today. Howard Glassman is here, not Lastman. What the hell's wrong with me? Howard Glassman is a Canadian radio personality, better known as Humble and/or Fred.
Humble and/or Fred.
Well, Humble and Fred is a very popular morning show on, I believe it's CFNY or one of the other stations, Q107. Sean McNulty is here at 11 a.m. He is the founder of XIB Capital, which is a behind-the-scenes company that really puts a lot of money into these companies. They are part of one of the co-founders of Canopy Rivers. Jay Wilgar is here at 11:15. He's the CEO of Newstrike Brands, which has obviously been taking it on the chin in this morning's sell-off. Nathan Woodworth will be here from James E Wagner Corp at 11:30. James E Wagner Corp being the only aeroponic grower, licensed producer in the Canadian matrix. And then at noon, Matt Bottomley is going to be here. He's Canaccord Genuity's marijuana analyst. And then at 1, it will be our friends from Follow the Money Investor Group. Brandon Colwell and Carl Boyd are going to be here taking you through their universe of companies, and probably got a couple of great interviews lined up as well. And at 3:15, Mike Gorenstein, CEO of Cronos Group, will be here. 3:30, Daniel Pearlstein, the Executive Vice President of Strategy for Canopy Rivers, will be on. And then we will hear from Anna Maria Anenajor. She's the Director of the Canadian Cannabis Amnesty Campaign. And then at 4:15, we'll be talking to Ivan Ross Vrana from Hill Knowlton Strategies, and he's going to run us through, province by province, what is being sold where. Again, we invite you, the viewer, to go and visit a cannabis store in your neighborhood, if you have such a thing, and log into your Skype account, call us on Skype, and send us some video of what's on the shelves in your province. We would really love that. Skype handle is at Midas Letter, and yeah, we'll put you on the air. You'll be live. You'll be live. I'm curious to see, Edward, who is up this early with us in the realm of the
social media.
In the social media, well, of the YouTube universe. I want to see who's actually, whether our audience is all about the afternoons, or whether in fact we are
right. Maybe we should, maybe we should do the show first thing in the morning.
Yeah, we'd have to get different people to do that, wouldn't we?
Morning show.
Morning show with Ed and James. Let's see here. 152 on already this morning. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. When are they sparking up? We will not be sparking up because you can only smoke cannabis in the same place where cigarettes are allowed to be smoked, and this is a non-smoking facility, as are most in Canada, if not absolutely all. All right, let's see here. Lots of body and mind. So people are asking about body and mind. Actually, Leonard Clough is in town today. I don't know if we'll get him on the show, but I am going to meet with him later on. And we'll see who else from BAM is on. And let's see what else we got going on today, Edward. Well, you know what we're going to do.
I'm just kind of in a little shock and awe here this morning for...
Why? Because the sell-off is so intense.
Yeah, well, it just seems like,
Yeah,
right out of the gate. Like,
right out of the gate. Well, this could be one of those days that turns into a green day, too. Because the profit-taking started yesterday. At some point, there's going to be that old fatigue will set in and people will start buying it up again.
Yes.
But so yeah, we have incredible volume of content to share with everybody here today. And so send us a note on the YouTube chat if you'd like to ask us or any of our guests anything at any point. We are monitoring the chat today. We are going to, oh look, Jim Klanowski says, happy to catch the show in the morning. There's one vote for a morning show.
Really?
Yeah.
Early to bed, early to rise.
Well, that's what kind of social life are we going to have? Howard Glassman's going to join us here soon.
What about?
He's been doing a morning show for years. So
really?
We'll ask him what that's like.
You know what they say? The early bird gets the worm.
The early bird gets the worm. Boy, that's
just saying.
That's original. That's original.
How about this? Just saying.
That's not your Just Saying cup.
No, that's my Wayland cup. Wayland.
Yeah.
Wayland.
Let's see how Wayland's doing today.
Yeah. And you're suggesting, you told me that they've got a major contract pending.
Who?
The old American.
Wayland. Wayland's got all kinds of things in the pipeline.
Like this is like one of the companies you think are fairly undervalued?
Yeah, that's why we invited them to become a client because I looked at the performance to date and what they've got so far, and it's one of those companies that has not been a beneficiary of the effusive mania surrounding other cannabis companies. That's due to a couple of regulatory hiccups that they've had, which are now firmly in the rearview mirror. And they just, by way of evidence, they just closed, or rather just filed a prospectus for their recently announced bought deal financing. So that's all gone in the past. And so that's why, you look at this thing, and if you think about, you look at all the assets they have, the countries they're in, and you're just gonna see, I think you're gonna see tremendous growth in this thing. I think it's gonna outperform most of the other stocks, really, because they've been under the thumb of this cloud, which no longer exists, and the sun has begun to shine upon them.
There's been a parting in the cloud?
There's been a parting of the seas.
The parting.
Yeah, anyways, so...
there's a hole in the bottom of the sea.
Taking a 6% hit today.
Aphria is turning around here. Aphria was down almost $2. It's now only down 70 cents. So maybe
and so at $1.74, I think it's a steal. Aphria is down 17.75 cents.
Yeah, I know, but it was down over like almost $2.
Yeah. Are they going to announce a deal with Marlboro?
Well, let's ask them. I'll pretend I'm in.
I don't think they're
actually ring, and I'll go, hello, Aphria here.
I think Vic is going to make some kind of a crazy announcement this week.
Really?
Yeah, I just have the sense.
This week.
I feel it in my bones. Yeah. All right, let's look for signs of life in any of these exchanges. Who is green today?
Okay, so Aphria hit 1675 almost. It's now
maybe there's some green on the venture index.
You know what? I'm going to tell you something right now. This is astounding.
What's that?
Aphria's flying here. Right in front of us. Yeah.
Avivagen up 2 cents to 57. There's a green one.
It's at the high of the day, Aphria.
Yeah. CO2 Grow is up a penny to 20 cents. Been trading in that range for quite some time. Intelligenics Technologies Corp up 2 cents to $1.12. And our good friends at FluroTech
up a penny, flying.
Up a penny. So these guys have a roadside testing device that's supposedly superior to the Draeger, which is the one that Blow is touting out there. So it'll be interesting to see if, let's see, what's the value of Blow?
According to my friend, who really likes FluroTech.
Yeah.
He's suggesting that revenues will starting shortly in the their company is going to have a nice revenue stream. Yeah.
Selling machines. Well, we're going to have one here on the set. We're going to have one of the first ones, and we're going to start testing everybody's cannabis, and then we'll know who's got the good stuff.
Yeah. There's no point buying the shit.
No. Every once in a while, I'm walking down the street and I smell somebody smoking some absolute funk, and you're just like, how does that stuff actually even make it to the street? And somebody takes the time to roll it up when we've got so much great product.
I know you know the answer to just about any question in the marijuana space. So, what really is skunk weed? Is it just weed that smells potent? Or is it an actual brand?
No.
Is it farmed by skunks?
No, it's right. There's these little skunks with coveralls on and overalls, and they're with their little rakes and hose.
And then what they do, just when they're ready to package it up, they give it a little squirt.
Yeah, no, there were some strains of some Kush, or not Kush, but some indicas back in, I guess the first time I heard the term skunk was back in the early 90s, late 80s.
Skunk?
Where people would be like, because the weed would smell skunky. So there was some terpene profile that would generate a smell that was similar to a skunk, obviously without the rancid aspect, but it would be profoundly aromatic. And like it used to be funny. Like if you were harvesting or trimming marijuana back in those days, you go to the store to take a break or something, and people would look at you like, you smell like a skunk.
Yeah.
And that was so. I don't think it's any one strain, but there's been lots of strains that have adopted the name because for a while the idea of skunk was synonymous with potent marijuana. So everybody was saying, "Who's got the skunk? Let's smoke some skunk." And that's my understanding. Now, this is the thing about the marijuana industry and culture, is that everybody has their own experience and their own sort of reference points in their personal timelines, and there's not one that's more accurate than the other. Whatever happened for you, and so you'll find a lot of conflicting stories about the origin of strains and the origin of different words and terms, like 420, for example. 420. Do you know where that term originates?
You know, I hate to say I don't know because you've only asked me this about 4 times, and I still.
Well, that's why I ask you, because I know the answer is I don't know.
I don't know. Okay, I don't know. What 420 has something to do with?
Well, my understanding is that 420 was the time that school was out, and so that was the time that the kids would meet to smoke a ripper.
You didn't go to school?
Intermittently.
I had already skipped out by 1 o'clock.
I was not what would be referred to as a good student. In fact, half the time I was skipping class to be out back in the forest smoking weed with my buddies.
Really?
And I wouldn't wait for 420 because we'd want to be high at school because school was so boring for us. But anyways, so that's why, again, I think it's interesting these new laws are designed to keep marijuana out of the hands of children. Well, I was 13 when I first started smoking it, and I can tell you in no uncertain terms that a kid determined to experiment with marijuana is going to get his hands on it no matter what. You will not keep marijuana out of the hands of kids with an extreme curiosity to explore that stuff. So there's going to be the interesting thing is there's going to be a lot of adults thrown in jail because the kids are, trying to get their hands on marijuana. You know that the new laws, and this is interesting, so Bill C-45 in some respects is recriminalization of cannabis. Because if you're an adult and you sell cannabis to for example, a 20-year-old sells a pound of weed to a 16-year-old, the 20-year-old is looking at up to 14 years in jail.
Really?
That's really interesting.
Sorry, I'm being a bit of a market. But if it's illegal, then you can't charge someone for selling something illegal to a minor. because it's illegal already. So that they don't even.
Well, it's illegal to sell it to a minor, but it's legal to sell it to an adult.
It's legal to sell it to an adult.
It's legal. Look at this. Look at CannabixTech, BLO, on the CSE, trading at $2.10.
Yeah.
Market cap of 212 million. So look at FluroTech now, and imagine FluroTech has the better mousetrap. Is that valuation going to accrue to FluroTech subsequently?
Absolutely.
I think it is.
That's the kind of story that I can sink my teeth into.
Oh, beautiful. Ed, you know what? This is starting to bore the hell out of me. And
you know what?
I'm going to. You know what? We're going to listen to one of. How about we look at one of our old site visits from one of the marijuana trips we did, and we're going to let Fraser in the control room pick whichever one he wants.
Hi, I'm James West. Welcome to another edition of the Midas Letters Cannabis video series. Today we travel to Lemington, Ontario, home of licensed producer Aphria, one of the few 100% greenhouse growers in the public markets.
If you understand Mother Nature and what really does a plant need, it's a very tailored process. It's way ahead of our competition. A good crop is two things. Are you maximizing yield per plant or per square foot? And secondly, is the potency that you're expecting to test for you actually got? So you can have one without the other, and then, yeah, I want both.
Things that we have to tailor towards a cannabis plant, but the science behind growing plants, especially on a commercial scale like we're doing here, it really is all of the same. Obviously supplemental lighting, screens over the vents to stop bugs from entering the facility. We have blackout curtains to force the plants into production. We have shade curtains if we want to shade the plants on a day that's too sunny. Right. Heated concrete floors to help with the plants growing in the winter.
So Dave, tell me, what is the purpose of these stickers? What are they? What do they do?
So this is a QR code, barcode. By the ACMPR, we have to track every plant from seed to sale. So we can put any type of information we need on this barcode. The mother that it came from, what stick week it is, what variety it is, the strain, when we transplanted it, when we took the cutting of it, when we put it into soil, and when we harvest it.
Technology is a major focus for modern greenhouse farming.
So you can essentially turn day into night and back again.
I can demonstrate that for you right now off my phone. With technology, as long as I can get a cell phone service, I can control any aspect of this greenhouse through my phone. So right now, sunset's around 8:30 for us, but I have it this dark in here by about 6:30 every night. We don't like fighting Mother Nature. You know, all plants, no matter where they grow in the world, in their DNA they have responses to the natural sunlight. We can mimic a lot of that in a greenhouse or in an indoor facility, but you still can't replace natural sunlight.
Aphria stressed the importance of oil products going forward, and we looked at the extraction process.
So this is the extraction room. It goes through a number of dilution processes where they actually start cutting the pure product with what we call MCT oil. That's kind of where Vic's background and our chief science officer kind of kicks in.
A major focus for Aphria is their expansion in progress.
You'll see nothing but different sizes of plants here.
Wow. And this is just phase 2.
Just phase 2. This is 57,000 feet you see here.
57,000
Yeah.
feet. Wow.
Phase 3 is 200,000. Just think of that. So 3.5 times this size.
So
And 350,000 feet of infrastructure.
Okay.
See, when other LPs talk about their numbers, they embed everything in one.
Right.
I'm trying to be a little more, better fully disclosure. It's 1 million square feet of what you see here. A 1 million square feet is huge. It is absolutely the biggest of any LP in Canada, and this isn't talk. You saw all the lands.
Yeah.
Again, this is not we got to buy our land. No, we got it. We got to get funding. No, we got the capital in the bank. We got to get engineering. No, it's done. Site plan with the city of Lemington. Done. You know, posts are going in next week for part 3. Since November, Aphria is selling what we're growing. We are absolutely maxed out. We're already dipping into our vault structure. So what we're growing every month, every week, is what we're selling. Be very cognizant of licensed producers who are building up vault full after vault full of inventory, because one day that balance sheet inventory has to hit the income statement. And when it's reversed, it's going to be damaging to that income statement. Aphria is not in that situation.
And welcome back to the Midas Letter. I'm your host, Humble Howard Glassman from the Humble and Fred Show. And today our guest is me. Why? Because we thought, hey, all this money talk and the stock exchange and all that, let's talk about something we can all sink our teeth into, and that's marijuana. Our guests are James West and this big brain guy named Ed. And let's begin now. Howard, what is your involvement with the marijuana industry as an investor, as an advisor, as a user? Well, great question, Howard. Let me begin by telling you this. I don't know where the ride began, but someone got on this Canopy Growth thing early on, right? I wasn't that guy. But here's my question to you two big brain financial wizards. Did you get on? No?
Not me.
No?
Not me.
Seriously?
Not him.
Let me ask you this question. And by the way, thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming.
I'm curious about, when did Bay Street first get an inkling that there was going to be a ride on this marijuana roller coaster?
November 2013 is when I think that, so Chuck Raffici, who is now the CEO of Oxley, another LP, he co-founded Canopy, back when it was called Tweed, with Bruce Linton. At the time, Chuck Raffici was the CFO of the Liberal Party of Canada, before it was the federal party, the federal governing party of Canada. And so the connection that can be drawn without any, not casting aspersions on the characters of anyone.
Let's not cast aspersions just yet.
But Chuck Raffici and Bruce Linton started this thing just before the feds or the liberals ran on this platform of we're going to legalize marijuana in part.
Again, all joking aside, I do appreciate you guys having me here, but I am interested in this. I'm a comedian, I do radio, and I've done television. But I'm interested in this because as a guy 58 years old, we've all spent our lives scurrying around and buying weed under the gardener from some guy with like a 3rd foot. So it's all exciting, but what I don't think people realize is that, and I've talked about this a lot on our radio show, it's not just about can you buy marijuana, because I could buy it yesterday, I can buy it tomorrow, but it's all the ancillary aspects, whether it's medicinal, replacing pharmacological, but as an investor myself, I got Canopy at, I think, $10. And I had to call my advisor, and it's analogous to having to call your doctor and say, hey, I've heard that it's pretty good for inflammation. I've heard it's good for all, and your doctor's like, I don't know anything about it. The reason I started with that question, though, is I called my advisor, I guess, whatever, $10 months ago, and said, hey, I think we should try this. I don't want to put a ton in, but I put enough in that when he called me 3 weeks ago and said it's at 70, maybe we should sell some. I went, yes, we should. What am I paying you for? But that's why I wanted to ask you guys, because from people in the business, when did you get a little sniff like, this might be something we want to direct some money to?
Well, it's a long story, but the cannabis thing got started after a prolonged period of mining misery. So Canada, in its small cap capital market, is very much dependent on a robust mining industry. And after 5 years of absolute misery where many people, including myself, were virtually financially wiped out because of my complete
Which is why you're doing this cockamamie video show in the lobby of an actual office. I'm kidding. It's not cockamamie. It's fantastic.
It is cockamamie.
I'm going to tell you, there's some there's young people. There's expensive camera work. I know what's going on. Somebody is sponsoring the crap out of this.
We're YouTubers.
I love it, man. Well, listen, we've been doing a podcast since before you had heard of a podcast. We started our first podcast on the Humble and Fred Show in 2006, but we started doing it daily.
I remember that.
In 2011, and we have put up more podcasts. You know, we jokingly call ourselves the most downloaded podcast in Canadian history, but we're certainly the most prolific. We've put up nearly 2,000 episodes of our show as a podcast. So I understand what you're doing here is amazing. But back to the information I think is interesting for the layperson. Because, you know, I had a bit of an inkling, and so I bought it at 10. Good for me.
And you held it. That's the amazing thing.
And I didn't have a ton of it, but I had enough to, you know, take a little bit out, and that was great. I also invested in a cannabis company. I'm not high now. Don't look at me that way. Ed is giving me a stare.
Stink guy.
But no. So I've been involved in terms of, as an investor, but I'm just curious. Like, I don't know if Canadians caught wind of it early on. And I think a lot of people are the poorer for it.
Yeah.
Those aren't easy questions to answer.
No, I know. I just thought.
And if you ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 different answers.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, here's somebody. I asked an advisor today this question. I'd ask it to you guys. Is it too late? Is the ride over, or because you know today it's a big topic, the 17th legalization, but we've all been talking about it as an investment for some time. Is it too late?
Well. To answer that, I'm going to have the control room throw up the chart, please. And all you have to do is look at this chart, which is this. So this is the index, the marijuana index of all the Canadian cannabis companies with over $500 million in market cap. So it's the large cap Canadian index. And if you look at this, we started it as of January 2013. So I'm going to walk this out to the biggest look. And let's go full screen here.
There you go.
Okay, so here are the opportunities where cannabis, you know, the market got started way before January 2016, but this is where we started the index, which is why it only goes here. But if you look at these different places where the bars are dancing around, like these are all the opportunities you had to come in, make a ton of money, sell it, get out, come back in, continue to make money. But there are a lot of people who have lost a lot of money in these gyrations.
Mm-hmm.
And
so, is it because again? I pardon my naivete. When you say they lost money, is it because they went out at the wrong time?
Well,
because if you bought it and held it, you couldn't, like I did. You really,
right.
It's hard to lose. Well, I'm not sure. You can lose money, but are those people losing money because they didn't stay with it?
Yeah, some people just get.
Did that seem like a dumb question?
Well,
no, not at all. They see a sell-off happening and they sell it.
You went in. You thought, hey, look at this.
Ed's gotten out of his chair.
And you buy in here,
right?
And then you get out. You think, what am I doing? This is insanity. You look. You're down 20% a few weeks later. So you say, I'm out.
Right.
Here, just give me that.
Ed's phone is ringing.
Yeah.
Well, but Ed, does that go to the fact that in the emotion of the market, people still think, smart people like you, way smarter than me, still think they can time it?
You know, look, these...
Spit it out, Ed.
What did you guys expect me to come in here and talk about? Records and radio and
we were going to ask you about getting up in the morning and doing a morning show for decades.
I've been doing it for so long. That's as fascinating to me as if somebody asked you, hey, how do you decipher them? You're going, yeah, we just do it. It's just something we do. I'm curious because you guys are the smartest guys I've talked to so far today.
The only guys you've
early.
talked to.
First guys you've talked to today.
Yeah, you haven't talked to anybody.
But I think, and I can tell you from having experienced this as a user and as I have sponsors on our show that are, I was early to the market. I had early cannabis sponsors. So I've had a lot of dialogue about this for a long time. But this is the first time I've talked to anybody about the financial part of it. And I think what a lot of Canadians are going to wake up to today is, oh, maybe I should have some of this in my portfolio somewhere.
Right.
And just like In 5 years, it'll just be commonplace to walk into a farmer's, Shoppers Drug Mart, to the pharmacological section. You'll be able to get CBD oils and tinctures and all these things. In the next 5 years, it'll just be in everyone's mutual fund. You'll have Canopy and Northern Green, and you'll have all these things. It'll just be no big deal. But today, it's novel.
Right.
And for me, the questions are about, the historical, when the ride began. And I guess the second question I was going to ask you guys is why is it that, this phrase, the rich get richer? Who did I need to know to get Canopy when it was 20 cents? Who got that? Is that a dumb question too?
No, that would have been.
Ed's looking at me like
Bruce Linton. That's the bottom line.
Look, some people have this ability to be, like to look down and see trends early, right, and say this is going to be. I didn't. I thought No, if you're an accountant, have an accounting background like I am, you start looking at things like valuations, and you start looking at things like what's the cash flow. You start looking at some of the metrics, and you realize that you say, well, you know what, this is just too speculative for me, and I can get pot for free, so I don't. What do I want to invest in pot for? Like,
no, I get it, man.
Dummy.
I thought
look
the same
in the mirror, and so, but at least you called up and bought it, and bought it at $10. I mean, was brilliant.
Buying it and holding
again,
it.
I didn't buy a ton.
We should be asking him.
Well, I can tell you why.
Invest in this market.
No,
I'll tell you why I did.
Hey, Howard,
what
go ahead. Prompted you?
I'll tell you why.
To go and call up your broker and buy some of this. Like, I didn't see it. What did you see that I didn't see?
Here's what I saw. Is that, and I'm going to be. This is the honest truth. I stopped drinking just under 3 years ago. I had a problem with alcohol. People always say, "How did you know you had a drinking problem?" I said, "Well, one day I had a glass of wine, and I thought, what would go great with this?" And the answer I came up with was vodka. So I thought, okay, maybe I should just back this down.
Yeah.
So, having been a marijuana user off and on, I sort of turned to this new world of, when we were younger, it was just weed. And then I started learning about indica and sativas and different strains and different, like we have one of our sponsors called Strain Print. And what they do is you put in the kind of experience you're looking for, and it will spit out the kind of, it'll give you the strain that you should try. So I found out a lot about weed in a very short period of time. And then I heard about Canopy. I thought, maybe I shouldn't. Two things. I started getting interested in the difference of the, almost like a weed sommelier, the way some people know wine. I got educated on marijuana. And then I found out that the revolution isn't in the, no one's buying weed today that couldn't get it yesterday. But the revolution, as I found out 18 months ago, was when you can walk into a Shoppers and there's going to be a section with CBD salves, oils, tinctures, and drops. And I went, oh, that's where the real growth is. And then somebody told me about this company, Canopy. I just said to my broker, I didn't put much in. I don't know, with some number of thousands of dollars. Not enough for, if I'd made a lot of money, would I be here? No.
Right.
Kidding. I like both you guys well. But that's what got me interested in it. So
Well,
I immersed myself.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here because this is the house that Cannabis built, really. So when Bruce started his first company, nobody would talk to Bruce. Nobody would interview Bruce. Everybody was thinking, these guys are crazy. This is not going to fly. And I was sitting at home licking my wounds from the mining industry, doing my little podcast in the basement from Bowen Island.
Nice.
And I started calling all these cannabis guys and saying, hey, I'll do an interview with you. They're like, great, let's do it. And so I was able to access the CEOs of the first 5 cannabis companies and speak to them regularly because they appreciated the effort and the risk I was taking by exposing them on my show.
Well, and you've done, I can't congratulate you enough on what this is, because having built this myself for a radio opportunity, for a podcast opportunity, boy, that old thing about, the settlers, pioneers get the arrows, settlers get the land. Man, there's a lot of lean years between zero and the camera that's moving on a whatever that is. It's not a
slider.
A slider. But yeah, I get that. I respect it. And it's not easy doing what you do. And lots of people want to. They go, oh, I should do a podcast, or I should do a television, online financial report. Everyone says they want to do it. Not everyone will actually put the skin in the game to do it. So good for you.
Thanks.
Do you have any other questions for me? This parking
What should we
around.
do now?
This park-
I want to understand.
Well, I'll tell you about a company, young man. I'll tell you about a company I bought, but after we're done the interview.
I want to hear how you got into morning radio shows
No,
and how you
don't.
became. I do. You know why
Really?
I want to? I really
That's
do.
where we're at. Look at this fresh-faced young
Because
gentleman.
despite your skepticism, I in fact was a big fan of CFNY in
Yes.
the early days with David Marsden.
But that was before me. I didn't come until 1989. I started with Fred after the Pete and Geets era, after the CFNY era. We sort of started at the very last days of CFNY and when it became The Edge. So we've been a morning show in Toronto for 30 years. I hosted TV shows on City. I used to work at CTV, all the while doing stand-up and hosting corporate events. That's kind of what I do. If you're having a corporate event, you want to spice it up a little bit, you say, hey, we need a funny Jewish guy. That's when you call me. Ed, I know, there's not a lot of Jewish guys in the world of finance, so this might be new to you. Anyway, poor Ed.
There's certainly a lot of you fellas
people
in the entertainment business.
Yes.
In fact, you own the entertainment business.
You people.
I know.
Sorry, Ed. I'm just teasing. I didn't mean to put you in a spot there, Ed.
I think it's going to be hashtag Me Too over here.
Hashtag Me Jew. Hashtag Me Jew.
There's a new one.
How long is
Well,
this
that's what
thing?
you've done, Ed.
How long do we go here with this?
Well, we're doing
hilarious.
a record 7-hour continuous broadcast.
I'm hot.
In commemoration of the cannabis industry. But we
So
have-
that's, listen, if you want to find out more about Humble and Fred Radio, go to humbleandfredradio.com. Google has a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I'm trying to block you out. You see how I suddenly?
I see what you're doing. I see what you're up to.
I've got
feeling
a face at
threatened.
me on back here.
Wow.
And I'm actually talking to the crowd. saying,
More, I was wondering what you're doing for radio work now.
I will tell you this: the big growth, no pun intended, in this industry is not going to be about the flower, as the kids call it. I don't know when the last time you smoked any marijuana.
Last night.
You got your pen with you, Ed? You got your pen?
No, I like to twist up a bud.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm kind of off the flower experience. Once in a while I'll put some bud in someone will give me something. A lot of people, because of what we talk about on the show, are always
It's legal
trouble.
now.
Yeah. Well, there was.
Is it? It's always been legal.
Once in a while I'll put some in a pipe, but mostly I just either I smoke it out of a pen, I vape it, or this new thing I enjoy. It's called a shatter. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Oh, yes.
It's my favorite thing. Do you like it? It's the best thing ever. No, it's too
Shatter.
much.
It's too much for me.
It's too much.
I am
Same
a
with me.
one-hit wonder. Like 5 milligrams THC in my system is max.
Buddy, I'm telling you the same thing. It happened to me. So the first time I did it, I was doing stand-up at a weed-friendly club. And they're all over the city. It's another underground thing. So I'm at this place called the Comedy Underground on Queen East. Just before I go on, one of the kids, one of the comics says, hey, Humble, you got to try this. And I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. I've been smoking before you were born. I take one hit, I go blind in my left eye. and I'm like, I say to the club guy, I go, put someone else on before me because I am done here.
Really?
It's too much.
Really?
Yeah, it's like if you get really high THC in a flower, you might get 18 or 20 or 22%. Shatter is 80 or 90%. The way I describe it, it's like doing a line of THC. It's just instant. You can feel it. But the nice thing about it is it's a wave that crests and then you're fine.
Right.
You just got to, that first 15 minutes, you got to be alone with your dog. My dog's name is Stan. I say, Stan, Daddy's going away. If you need any water, I can't help you.
You got to wait for 15 minutes till I
Daddy
come
will be back
down.
in 15.
Yeah.
I can't move.
How
are we doing? Is this really going? I think this is going great.
Yeah,
Well,
we're enjoying the hell out of it.
Shatter.
Here's the great thing about, I don't know if you've had this experience, but we communicate with our audience while we're doing this.
Oh yes.
So
Unfortunately, we do too.
but sometimes, so like Debbie One Ray says, laugh out loud, shatter. I like this guy.
Yeah.
So Debbie One Ray,
Hey, Debbie.
send us your
But
shatter
I will tell you,
experience.
you got to be careful with that stuff, and that's one of the things that's different than when we were kids. When we were kids, it was just called weed.
Right.
Everyone had their own joint.
Right.
It was the size of a smart car, or you'd be like smoking these joints like a baguette. Someone had to spot you. You know.
Hold
Now
on,
it's like
for it.
one little boop boop, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm all right.
Yeah.
Netflix is good.
I'm with my buddy in Vancouver, and he says this is a one-hitter kind of pot. I said, well, I take two. He said, no, you don't understand.
No,
this is a one-hitter, and you take two. And
and you're done.
I told you. Yeah, I told you.
I know.
And you're sitting there all...
And you go, holy smokes.
With my girlfriend, like she likes a little bit, so I give her like the little pen, and she gets a little bit of a buzz, and she says, "How come I can't do the shatterizer?" I go, "It's not for you.
Yeah,
this is not for us. You're not there yet. One day maybe."
You have to graduate from
graduate.
university first. Yeah.
No, the shatter is something else altogether.
I don't think
something
I've tried
I don't
the
think
shatter.
that once the government wraps their head around it, that they're going to be too keen to have available on shelves for recreational, medical, cultural,
it knocks
spiritual,
it, like-
any purpose.
You're probably right, James. I mean, I don't that whole other aspect of the government getting involved, and when we talk a lot about this morning, over the 10 provinces and territories, everyone is different. For instance, in Newfoundland this morning, you can go into a store and buy marijuana. In Ontario, you're not going to see a store until the spring. In Manitoba, if you have a certain amount, over a certain amount, I should say, it's a $200 fine. It's just so ad hoc, and I was wondering this morning, I opined, that why didn't they make it universal? And the answer came back because provinces, the way they deal with alcohol distribution, they're left to their own in terms of this as well, which to me seems a bit antiquated, and just shows you how Ontario is still a little bit puritanical in that, you can't go into a grocery store in Ontario and buy it. Well, now you can, but just barely.
Well, it gets into centralized versus decentralized, right? We have such a big country. How do you know what's good for Newfoundlanders versus... And everybody wants to say, hey, don't tell us what to do. Everybody's got that...
Yeah, remarkably, the Maritimes have the most together. It's available online. They've got stores all over every province, and they've got the fullest variety of
on over there. There's nothing else going on.
There's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
So tell me this: prior to legalization, had you ever been, either of you, into a dispensary?
Yeah. I have.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling.
Well, if especially when you consider it's illegal.
I was in Victoria in August, and they have different laws there, and they've allowed a couple of places to, like the ones in Toronto have been a little bit sort of sketchy, fly by night, they're open one day, they're not the next. This place that I went into, it was like walking into a David's Teas. Very low lighting, beautiful beautifully furnished, very knowledgeable. Everything was behind glass, and just amazing, a really great experience. And that's kind of where we're headed here eventually, because there will be the Ontario cannabis stores, but there's also going to be a bunch of private stores, and they're the ones I think you'll be able to go in and get the shatter and all the other things. But my point just is that, in 5 years from now, it'll be like walking to a Starbucks. You'll be being served by an off-duty cop. I mean, it'll just be like, who cares?
A couple of the former police officers, former superintendent of Vancouver City Police, Cash Heed, is the CEO of a cannabis company. Julian Fantino, former chief of police of the city of Toronto.
And when we get done here, I'll tell you about another connection.
See, we should start a new cannabis company called Former Cops Cannabis Corp.
It's funny you say that, because what I'm going to tell you once we're done here, you'll be like, oh, I had no idea.
Well, we're rolling out actually our own line of cannabis products through collaborations with all of the LPs who are going to create Midas Letter seal of approval quality drugs. And the idea being not that we're going to pick the best and strongest. We're going to pick the one that's most appropriate for certain age groups. In other words,
James, I got to tell you, this one of our clients, strainprint.ca, what they're all about is not just recreational experiences, but they're about, if you have, inflammation, elbows, Parkinson's, you put in your headaches, and they will give you the strain and plus it's people sharing information. You got to get those people on the show.
I'd love to. Love to. All right, we're going to throw to one of our other former, probably might have seen this before, one of our other site visits that we went to, and I'm going to throw it to Fraser to choose which one he puts up now.
All right, Fraser.
I don't have the list, but anyways.
It's all about yield. It's all about productivity. We are at the pinnacle of automation. We look for new technology every single day.
This is called the F80 Polycaps capsule filling machine, and what we do is fill capsules with cannabis oil. So in our tablets, we're doing 3 varieties, our 1-to-1, our THC, and our CBD. I think this makes it more accessible to patients all around. It's more understandable as a pharmaceutical or medical product, and easier for doctors to prescribe instead of saying a couple puffs of a joint.
Right.
So our irrigation system is all fully automated. We do mix our own nutrients here.
Yeah, we don't use any pesticides. I mean, that's a very important value proposition to us.
So we use preventative nematodes in all of our feed.
Eat the larva.
They'll eat the larva of any predatorial insect.
Completely benign to the growing process, but very advantageous to risk mitigation.
Is there CO2 in this room?
Yes, there are CO2 injectors in every room. That's it.
The last yield, Jane, out of this room right here was 400 grams per square foot. So we blew our 350 average away. It's coming down to the horticulturalists and real science about how to dial in the strains appropriately for the environment. And we're doing that right now down in Niagara. And so that's going to be a very exciting time to see what comes out of that facility.
We purchased this facility in March. We had the cultivation license at the end of October. We've already harvested as well. I've done 5 different site licenses in the ACMPR. This is by far and away the largest site and the fastest to actually get to cultivation. And this is our smallest greenhouse range. It's about 10,000 square feet. This is the entire size of the flower canopy at Vaughan. So Vaughan produces about 3,000 kilos on an annualized basis. The capacity of this entire facility is going to be 40,000 kilos. The tabling system gives you the most coverage in your greenhouse range, and of course all of the advantages of having the continuous batch as well. And so now we're talking about a downtime in a grow area in minutes to hours as opposed to days to weeks. So this is really the future of cannabis production.
We talk about THC, CBD, there's a lot of microcannabinoids as well. THCV, you know, the precursors, CBC, CBG. Again, we're one of the only producers right now that are actually testing all those microcannabinoids. Everyone thinks of cannabis and the munchies. Well, THCV seems to suppress that effect. So, you know, that can be very, very valuable.
The designer cannabinoids are coming.
Designer cannabinoids designed to achieve specific psychoactive effects.
Physiological or psychoactive effects, depending on the cannabinoid we're developing.
Welcome cannabis to the modern manufacturing world. Yes, it's been sitting in isolation for 70 years, but great opportunity for us to take all of this existing technology, bring it to bear, just like they're used to every other raw material or finished product or consumer packaged good. Cannabis is no different. It fits into the modern manufacturing world, and let us help you get it there.
Welcome back to our all-day broadcast on Midas Letter Live. My guest in this segment is Sean McNulty. He is an advisor to Canopy Rivers, and if I'm not mistaken, a co-founder as well. Wouldn't it be safe to categorize you as a co-founder, Sean?
Yeah, I think our firm, XIB Financial, is one of the co-founders, along with Bruce and the team at Canopy, of Canopy Rivers.
So tell me about XIB Financial, how you got that thing all started, and how you came to be so integral to the whole Canopy machine.
Well, I guess XIB kind of started many years ago, but my background, and it's kind of similar background as Peter had, as my business partner. We were both M&A investment bankers at CIBC. Learned kind of, I think, fundamental valuation at a tier 1 firm. moved on, did some institutional equity sales covering mostly the hedge fund community in the event-driven type of sector. And then I spent 5 years on the buy side at MMCap, which has been one of the largest allocators of capital in the cannabis sector. And I was fortunate enough to be able to convince the PMs there and start a cannabis practice in 2013. I fell in love with this opportunity. My personal perspective is that commercialization of cannabis on a worldwide scale is one of, if not the most compelling investment opportunities, maybe even in the history of capitalism. So we wanted to start a firm that we thought we could leverage those three unique vantage points of insight, being the investment banking pedigree, the sales experience, and the portfolio management experience, coupled with a first mover advantage in cannabis. So we started XIB to do corporate advisory work, capital markets consulting, M&A advisory work, specializing in the cannabis industry, and Canopy Growth was our very first client, so it kind of just started there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember talking to you back in, I guess it was 2014, about, at that time it was Peace Naturals, which became Cronos Group, which you were also instrumental in helping them raise some capital, I believe. And so I was always sort of intrigued by, like, who's this guy who's like seems to be as interested in cannabis space. And back then, there weren't a lot of people who would tell you to your face that I'm all in cannabis, and they'd be like, "What are you crazy? You know that shit's illegal." But so you've been fortunate enough to be early and to be sort of visionary in terms of positioning yourself personally in the space, and then also professionally, you've aligned yourself with some of the top names in the space. So from your perspective, where is Canopy and Canopy Rivers going from here?
So I think what we're starting to see now is the proliferation of worldwide cannabis companies, and there's definitely a tremendous amount of retail euphoria in the whole sector. Canopy Growth was the first. They've spent the most money. They've been the first in all these new places. They've learned a lot of these lessons through trial and error, which has given them a tremendous amount of insight. They would do things a lot differently doing it over again, but being first in so many places has afforded them a tremendous opportunity and a worldwide competitive advantage. So about a year or so ago, we've decided at XIB we're going to focus on Canopy Growth as our horse. We think this is the worldwide leader in the cannabis community, and as Canadians, we have a regulatory environment that we're able to leverage and a capital markets environment that's incubated the worldwide cannabis industry. So aligning ourselves as a company with Canopy Growth, which in our opinion is the biggest and most progressive and advanced company in the sector on this worldwide basis, we thought we'd position ourselves very well. So I think that as Canopy goes into these new markets, which are almost on a daily basis undertaking their own regulatory reform, you have them arms wide open receiving guys like Bruce Linton to come in and share some of the insights they've learned from navigating the world's first G7 or G20 cannabis regulatory reform. And that insight and those lessons learned, the easy way through triumph and the difficult way through some tribulations, sharing the capital that we have, sharing the cannabis acumen that we've developed, and bringing in worldwide talent is something that they're in a position to do that most companies aren't. Mm-hmm. So I think Canopy Growth has made a very clear kind of path forward of trying to take over the world of cannabis. They want to be everywhere, do everything, be the biggest, be the best, be the first, and they're diligently focused on accomplishing that. But because this industry is so nascent, there are so many worldwide opportunities, so many entrepreneurs that are taking their skill set from something else and coming into cannabis. And whether it's a little extra capital or a little boost of insight and confidence on the operational side of things, I think Canopy Growth, in collaboration now with Canopy Rivers, they have two vehicles through which to provide that support. So whether it's full acquisition and join the team and join the dream at Canopy Growth, or you're trying to realize your own dream and build out your own business, but you can take some financial support and some operational insight from the team at Canopy Rivers. So I think the Canopy portfolio of companies as a whole now has two platforms to go after what is the worldwide opportunity.
Mm-hmm. So Canopy Rivers is distinct from Canopy Growth in that it is strictly an investment arm, not an operational arm.
So I'd say it's more of a mix. So the way to delineate the two platforms in the most simplistic way is to say that Canopy Growth wants to have complete ownership, complete control, autonomy over the operations and the economics. And it's probably easier to tell the story of how we started Canopy Rivers, because when we were doing M&A advisory work, which we still do at this time from the XIB perspective for Canopy Growth, we often found ourselves in that same situation where there's an entrepreneur with a great business, a great idea, a logistics platform, process, what have you. We think they're going to be tremendously successful, whether it's with us or with someone else. And they either didn't want to sell the entire business to Canopy Growth yet, or we couldn't see eye to eye on the valuation at this point in time. And because the industry is so nascent, a lot of them do fall into that former camp. They want to build and realize their own dream. So at the time, we were passing on them from Canopy Growth because we want to own and control. So we created this separate vehicle, and it is a separate company, separate management team, A1 team, independent directors, and we built the team the same way we built the portfolio. Let's go and find specialists with a track record of success from outside our ancillary industries where we think their skill set is applicable in cannabis, and by having them come in, build the team that it focuses on investing for Canopy Growth, we can now leverage the insight of Canopy, but also have a new platform to take minority interests. So Canopy Growth is the largest individual shareholder, and we have a special strategic support relationship with them, which gives Canopy Rivers, as an investor and a provider of capital, a tremendous advantage. But it's much more than just an investing company. There is an impact team that goes boots on the ground to provide operational support. There's, Canopy Growth has 1,200 employees now, and a good chunk of that employee group has some sort of economic association with Canopy Rivers. And that is a great retention tool for Bruce at Canopy Growth to keep his team, because as you can imagine, they get poached all the time.
Sure.
But for Rivers, it's also a huge advantage for us because it's bench strength that we can draw on. People that have an economic incentive to provide us great insight, early leads for opportunities, or even ongoing operational support on the due diligence or ongoing perspective. And then you also have that 35 people that aren't on the payroll on a daily basis. We don't need them full time. So we can draw on everyone from the communications team all the way to the C-suite when we need operational support. And then from a financial support level, we have a team of investment bankers, venture capitalists, accountants, and lawyers that really go through a comprehensive due diligence process so that outside investors, when they pick Canopy Rivers, they know that there's professionals managing the money and there's professionals governing the operations.
Right. Interesting. So this is the logic that governs your acquisition process or your investment decisions. Can we talk about the deal that you announced with between Pharmahouse and TerraSend, and how that that association with Canopy Rivers brought that deal together, and how it sort of benefits the shareholders of these companies mutually?
Sure. So I think that's a great example, and it's really what we're trying to see more of inside of the Rivers portfolio. Because if we get this right, we've created a portfolio of complementary cannabis companies that's representative of pretty much the entire value chain of cannabis, and that includes much more than just growing the plant. It's technology and media companies, it's logistics platforms, it's retail platforms, formulation, compounding, etc. So the relationship between Farmhouse and TerraSend is a great one, and those are even two, I think, key pillars in our portfolio, and a great demonstration of what we're trying to say we're doing, going and finding someone with a track record of success, an area of specialization outside of the cannabis industry, and bring them in. So TerraSend, you have the team of pharmacists, compounders, formulators. Chairman of the board, the largest individual investor, is a specialty pharma investor out of the US that manages over $1 billion, has built multiple billion-dollar companies. So that great track record of success and the relationship Rolodex is something that we think is very important for eventually going into the largest cannabis market in the world, which they've now stated their intention to do so. On the Farmhouse side, same thing. We've gone and found operators from one of the largest global agriculture companies. This is, yes, it's low-cost production, but these are entrepreneurs. They're marketing specialists. They own the IP that their competitors sell their products in. They exclusively provide all the tomatoes for Walmart. This is a very large commercial agricultural operator that can use their skill set, their area of specialization and expertise to help out another company in the ecosystem, while at the same time for Farmhouse, it financially and operationally de-risks their path to scaling up. Because scaling up in these large greenhouses, as you know, and as many of your guests would share, it's not an easy feat.
Right.
But Canopy Growth has a tremendous amount of experience and operational insight on the application side and even in the growing out of the greenhouse side. So in our joint venture, which is 50-50 with Farmhouse, we help on the application, we help with the initial genetics, we help ramp the asset up, and now through our ecosystem in Canopy Rivers, we provided a great offtake partner for a significant portion of their production. 20% of the flowering space will be going out to TerraSend, so it saves TerraSend mega capex dollars. They have raw active ingredients, is the way they think about it, input for their production. And for Farmhouse, who will eventually develop their own proprietary brands as well, they've now de-risked 20% of their square footage, and they've actually de-risked 30% of it when they include all of the offtake that they've entered into so far. So it's good collaboration among the ecosystem. We'd like to see lots more of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so I guess in your position as sort of at the apex of the relationship between Canopy Growth and Canopy Rivers, you've really got a bird's eye view of the industry in its entirety. You have insight into the operations of the largest cannabis company in the world. You also have a steady pipeline of people coming looking for money and hoping to get Canopy's involvement. So I want to ask you, because this is the big $1 million question I'm leading up to, is you've got one camp in the market that's saying this is .com 2.0 all over again, including the dot-com meltdown. And then you've got the other camp that says, no, 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 you don't understand. This is the beginning of a revolution and the evolution of a product which will have applications for every man, woman, child, and pet going forward. So I know I'm in that camp. Which camp are you in?
So I mentioned at the beginning, I think this is one of the most compelling opportunities in the history of capitalism. I really do mean that. Everyone that works at Rivers, everyone that works at XIB has quit their job, taken a pay cut, written a check, and we work for equity. We think of ourselves as principals instead of agents, because the best way to have leveraged return, if we're right on this economic opportunity, is to be owners rather than advisors and commission clippers. So I think that there is a huge opportunity. I think for the retail investor and even the institutional investor, there's also a very tremendous amount of risk. Just like the dot-com bubble, there are lots of stories that are going to end in tragedy. I think in cannabis, anyone who says that that's not going to be the case is naive to what's going to happen in these capital markets, because we're in an environment that is still predominantly driven by retail investment flow, which is psychological based, not fundamental valuation based. On the other end of the spectrum, you have hedge funds. So with retail and hedge funds and not a lot of institutions in the middle just yet, you have a lot of volatility, a lot of discrepancy in valuation, and that's going to eventually lead to some pain for some and some triumph for others. But if you were to compare it to the tech bubble, companies like Amazon or Google or Apple emerged from that tech bubble. And if you have exposure to any companies like that in a cannabis industry, which is already significantly different than the internet, this is a worldwide $200 billion a year economic economy that already exists. All we're doing is changing the source of supply, doing it in a way that has tremendously high barriers to entry. And as Canadians and Canadian companies, we're the financial epicenter and the regulatory gold standard, which the world is following. So I think it's a little bit different than the tech bubble or the real estate bubble or one of the other kind of paradigms you can compare it with. But the opportunity is real. We have a huge competitive advantage. I think that if you were to add up the total value of the 3 largest liquor companies or the 3 largest tobacco companies or the 3 largest global CPG companies, you get $400 billion valuations for that group. If you add up the 3 largest global cannabis companies, you have less than $50 billion. So for the ultimate winner, there is a lot of upside. For some of the others along the way, there's going to be consolidation. There will be some that fail. There will be some that do okay. But if you pick the horse that is going to win this race, and we're an inch into a marathon, I think that winner has a tremendous amount of financial and economic upside from here.
So that's interesting. You say we're an inch into a marathon. Clearly, you would say that it's not too late, but you're going to have to be more discreet with your choices in deployment of capital to avoid becoming a victim rather than a successor.
I think that investors and even people looking to get into this cannabis industry need to do their diligence, do their homework, right? If you're going to put money to work in the cannabis sector, find a management team that has credibility and track record of success. Find a business that's very well capitalized and has access to incremental capital over time. Find one that's made mistakes but then got it right the second time around. And so when I say we have what I think is an almost unfair global competitive advantage at Canopy Rivers, we tick all those boxes for now, and most of our peers and most of the other companies in the cannabis industry don't. It's a handful of really, really solid operators out there, and you're seeing the talent from these other industries flow into those companies. I think you'll see that continue over time. But for the small group that have been in this sector from day one and have made mistakes but have learned from those mistakes and now are bringing that insight to a worldwide platform instead of just a domestic one, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity.
You bet. All right, Sean, we'll leave it there for now. Thanks very much for your participation.
All right, awesome. Thanks, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, James.
Coming up next, we've got Jay Wilgar from Newstrike. He's going to join us, but first we're going to take a look at this site visit tour we did from James E Wagner Cultivation Corporation, which is one of the portfolio holdings of Canopy Rivers.
JWC was founded over 10 years ago. Previous to that, I was actually on disability. I had severe chronic intractable migraines. So I turned to cannabis. And within a couple of years, it turned my life around. My family joined me under the MMAR. Many of them suffered from conditions which I knew could be helped. We turned to my grandfather, James Wagner. All his life he grew a variety of things, and he grew cannabis too, and he showed me my first cannabis plant back in the day. So we're a family business, a family of patients and growers who have founded a company to bring our unique medicine to the larger group of patients here in Canada.
you grow here aeroponically as opposed to hydroponically or conventionally. What's the difference between aeroponics, hydroponics, and growing in dirt?
We eliminate any potential intermediary and provide our nutrition in the form of liquid nutrients directly to the root mass of the plant using a special type of mister spray that allows the plant to optimally absorb the nutrients that we provide. There's no chemistry involved in soil composition or in substrate monitoring. So we can optimize directly to the conditions that the plant requires. Because of the high efficiency of our system, we use less nutrients. We use, no pesticides. All of these other elements of cost, which also create work and therefore increase the number of employees required to service the plants, are simply not present when you consider aeroponics and the JWC approach. This is our vegetative room. We've got a large group of Rockstar Kush plants. This is a terrific producer, comes out at about 24.5% THC usually. As we come down here, we have a group of ChemDog plants. Now these plants are just getting ready to move under the screen training into their next phase. ChemDog, a beautiful plant, comes out only at about 17 or 18% THC, but it has a wonderful earthy flavor. This is one of my own personal favorite strains. We run a perpetual harvest cycle. So one of our flowering rooms every week will produce a harvest. We have 5 flowering rooms just like this one. Each of those flowering rooms can produce approximately 4 kilograms of product every week, which gives us an estimated production capacity of around 1,500 kilograms every year from this pilot location.
This is one of our sea vaults that we use to store the product. It's completely airtight and they're stainless steel, which makes for easy sanitization. And inside we have some of our Rockstar Kush. Okay, there's actually about 1 kilogram of product in here, which translates into roughly $10,000 worth of value. So this product looks a little bit different. This is our Cannatonic. It's extremely low in THC and it's between 11 and 12% CBD. The goal of this is to preserve the trichomes on the outside of the bud. All the cannabinoids are contained within those trichomes, and so that's why we take great care to preserve them. Looks really good, by the way.
This is the old Lear seeding manufacturing plant. We are taking it over now. Construction is well underway. I anticipate we'll have somewhere between 125 and 140 flowering rooms at this location. But on average, we're going to harvest approximately 4 kilograms of cannabis every week from every one of those flowering rooms, 52 weeks out of the year. Now that works out to about 28,500 kilograms of cannabis out of this location once we're at full production on a yearly basis. By the time all is said and done, we'll spend between $35 and $40 million building one of the most advanced cultivation facilities in the world.
We're live. My guest in this segment is Jay Wilgar. He's the CEO of Newstrike Brands, trading on the TSXV under the symbol HIP.
HIP. That's right.
Jay,
good
welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So, Jay, let's start with the overview. Is how has today's legalization changed the universe for hemp?
Well, I think the one thing that we've been sticking to and we continue to talk about is we are really the one company that has been very focused on recreational cannabis. We have not taken on patients from the get-go. We've been focused on building brands, certainly with our relationship with the Tragically Hip and other musical groups. So yesterday and today and the lead up for us has been enormous. And you can imagine we're very excited. We're finally here.
Right.
continuously getting numbers rolling in on sales already. Actually already been contacted by one of the provinces asking if we can ship more this morning.
Really?
Oh yeah, I mean it's going.
Out of weed already.
Well, I ordered this morning just for the first time because I had to, and I was on the phone with my dad and I ordered.
Yeah.
And at 8 a.m. this morning, and I was ordered 36,008 something or other at OCS. So there's no question that this is moving well.
36,000.
Yeah, it's 36,000 something or other, and so it's. Yeah, it's moving. I think
Really?
Canada is very excited about it, and for us, it's a huge day because this is what we've been waiting for. You know, from an investor point of view, we haven't been able to put out numbers because we didn't have numbers.
Right. Right.
So we've been stockpiling for several months, and now we're actually able to sell. So really excited about that.
So this should have a really strong impact on your share price because, I mean, as a recreational, this was the day you needed to happen.
This was the day for us, yeah. And you know, that's the thing. If you look at it, you know, people say, why haven't we, you know, haven't we got a lot of coverage and research and whatnot? Part of that is really to build up to this. You know, we've been sticking to this story of let's execute really, really well on what we're doing here in Canada.
Right.
You know, the opportunity is enormous here. We're not focused right now on running off into every country in the world and trying to, you know, trying to be everything to everyone. Our focus is we have the biggest, best market in the world right now. Let's make sure we can deliver on what we're doing, and that remains our focus right now.
Interesting. Do you think that the representations made by certain elected officials that there was going to be a privatized physical market in terms of physical stores, do you think that that is, like, I'm just curious, is because your involvement in the market, are you hearing anything, is that moving forward? Because it seems like it's a little bit uncertain as to how that's going to happen.
It certainly is moving forward, and as you can imagine, because our distribution channels are you know, dependent on these policy changes and what's happening, we're very up to speed on where we see distribution moving and how it's moving. You know, certainly Alberta, I think, is moving quickly right now. We know Ontario, the spring is really when it's going to be really ready. We don't know exactly when in the spring. But you know, as I said, I think last time, I think the one thing for everybody is today is a really exciting day. There's no question, but today is just the start.
Right.
And this process is going to take all of us some time. It's going to take government's time, you know, municipalities, police, schools. Everybody's going to learn as we go through that, and quite frankly, I think we're all having a lot of fun as we go through it too.
Yeah.
And you know, the whole world's watching. I saw the New York Times Tokyo edition yesterday said, "How high can Canada get?" And so you see, you know, this is the world, and
right.
You know, our view is let's make sure that we execute as well as we can in this market, because, you know, if you think of what it took for us to get here as a country. I mean, this took years. I mean, we started this company 6 years ago, and so today is obviously a pretty exciting day for us. But for the whole industry, and I think for Canadians too, it's going to be a process, no question.
You bet. So, in that you're strictly focused on recreational.
Correct. Yeah.
How are you going to deal with the limitations on advertising and promotion that are obviously somewhat dependent on the success of a recreational brand?
Sure. So, I mean, I think first of all, we expected that was going to be the case. When you look at, again, Health Canada rolling this out for the very first time, I think the decision, and probably makes sense, is to go, call it as far to the right conservative as you possibly can as far as advertising and promotion is concerned. But that being said, a brand is more than that. You know, when we talk about our Up brand and we look at the association that we've got with music and some of the things that we've done over the last several months to you know, have our customers associate with our brand, we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to message the way we can through the regulations that Health Canada has put forth. And quite frankly, I think we'll work with the government, I think most of us, to see over time how much we can, you know, change those regulations to allow for more brand identity. Because ultimately, if you think of any consumer good, at the end of the day, the brand really wins the day, and the consumer wants to know what that brand is.
Yeah.
And that's certainly our intention, is to be a very, very major brand and recognized brand in this marketplace.
Sure, and I guess especially in the context of, I mean, the LPs will be ultimately, their success will be determined by their balance sheet.
Yes.
The government's success will be determined by how able they are to eliminate the black market. And so by denying the ability to advertise and promote the alternative to the black market, how are they going to compete? I think that sort of awareness is going to penetrate the government's sort of understanding as time goes on. I mean, we've had 6 years to get to this point and understand the importance of branding. They're just getting started.
They're just getting started. and you know what, and I've said it all the way along, they're doing a great job, and they really are. You know, dealing with all of the provinces, and And federally, I mean, it's not easy for anybody.
No.
It really isn't. And that's why I think there certainly needs to be a level of patience that people have. And again, you know, I think Canadians generally take things quite well.
Yeah.
There are certainly going to be bumps in the road. We know that. We've seen it already. And I can tell you in the last month, our staff has been working tirelessly on things like excise stamps and
right.
you know, all these little issues.
Right.
The exciting thing I think for us though is we're at this point now with dry bud and with you know, pre-rolled joints and a little bit of oil. When we look at the future and what products we plan on rolling out and the brands that we're able to roll out, I think for us that's really the excitement right now. Certainly the products that we've got now are, you know, I think Canadians consume a lot of dry bud, but we also know that from a margin point of view, certainly for investors, but also from a choice point of view, a lot of people are certainly looking to, you know, vape pens, shatters, a lot of these other things that I think we certainly intend on playing a very major role in those markets as well.
Great. All right, Jay, well, we're going to leave it there for now. We'll come back to you in a quarter's time or so and see how you're doing. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right now, we're going to throw to a video that we recorded at Organigram out in New Brunswick just a very short while ago. Here's that video.
So I think a bit of the secret about what we've really been doing here, we started really focusing on our patients. Once you start to understand your patients and what they're looking for, we can take that and apply it to our grow. We have significant investments in our engineering, in our mechanical designs, in our electrical designs. And what we've been able to do is create a 3-tiered growing model that from the bottom left to the top right and everywhere in between, our climate, our water, our temperature is very consistent, which allows us to standardize the crop the whole way through. And at the end of the day, we produce a product that is unmatched in the marketplace and unmatched from a financial cost standpoint at the same time. Monk the proud.
How's it?
So we have basically 3 systems in this room. We have a cooling system, a heating system, and a heat recovery system. We need 36 tons of cooling just to cool the lights. And then the rest of the capacity of the unit is to extract the moisture out of the air because the plant produces a lot of transpiration when they absorb nutrients. We emphasize on high quality and standardized environments, and this is how we can achieve it. So this latest expansion is equipped with an 8 megawatt electrical service. It's got a lot of redundancy built in, so our mechanical is separate from our grow rooms. So we're actually working on a substation, which will have 2 20 megawatt transformers.
40 megawatts in total, so enough to power a small town.
Yeah, probably bigger than a small town, yeah.
And what's your electricity bill here every month?
Last month it was around $300,000.
These are the air handling units for the rooms. The air handling units are outside of the room so that anytime you have to change a filter, anytime you have to do some work, you're not bringing anything into the grow rooms.
Do they give off a lot of heat as well?
Yeah, so we capture that heat and we use it to heat up our irrigation water so that the plants aren't getting cold water.
It's so complicated. The water is circulating by the air to get warmed up, and then it's going down into the food tanks, and then it's being recaptured. Like, who designed all that?
It was a team effort.
Okay, but it's completely a 100% New Brunswick operation.
100%, yeah.
Take that, West Coast. We're here inside glorious and beautiful room 24. What do we got here?
So we're in an Edison room and we're looking at Edison Reserve here.
When you say Edison, what are you talking about? I thought this company was called Organigram.
So we just recently launched our core recreational brand, the Edison Cannabis Company. And within the Edison Cannabis Company, there's a sub-brand called Edison Reserve. So that's the creme de la creme. It's our top buds that get hand manicured and craft cured afterwards.
So this is Edison Reserve.
This and this and this and this.
And the lower buds?
They go to the Edison standard line. They go through a machine trimming process, so more of a mainstream product.
is it still going to be Organigram that focuses on the medical market?
Exactly. Organigram will be our core medical brand, always will be.
What are some of the other brands besides Edison that you recently launched?
Yeah, so we've got Anchor Organics, which will be our recreational facing organic brand. And we've also got the Trailer Park Buds. So Trailer Park Buds, we're going to be launching with pre-rolls only across the country.
Oh.
Yeah, so...
those guys can't roll to save their lives.
Convenience. Convenience what it's all about. We've received some initial guidelines from Health Canada on how recreational packaging could look. Going to be heavily regulated, child resistant. So we've gone ahead and done some initial mock-ups. So you're looking at the Edison Cannabis Company line of packaging. You'll notice there's the THC symbol that has to be on all packaging. The logo can be no bigger than this standardized THC symbol. The Edison Cannabis Company was our decision to create a brand focused on innovation, focused on product. And as we move forward with expanded product lines, such as vaporizers and edibles, definitely the Edison brand positions us well for future innovations.
So at Organigram, when you put all that together, I think it's a combination that's unseen in Canada in today's marketplace.
Hey, welcome back. We're back. We're back. It's an all-day cannabis thing. It's legal now. Oh my God. If you enjoyed that JWC video that we showed just a little bit earlier, now we have Nathan Woodworth here, who is the CEO of James E Wagner Cultivation Corp, trading on the TSX Venture under the symbol JWCA. Nathan, welcome back.
Thanks very much for having me on.
Nathan, let's start with what has changed in the JWC universe now that this day has finally arrived.
Well, you know, I think it's something that we've been waiting for a long time. I can remember talking about this issue with my grandfather on the farm years ago. And so it's something that, you know, in our family, we've been waiting for this for generations.
Wow.
You know, my grandfather's father grew cannabis in the early 1900s before Prohibition. So, you know, we've gone full cycle on this, and we're happy to be back. And
That long ago?
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
You know, there was, he emigrated here from Germany, and as my grandfather tells it at least, he brought the seeds with him. And it was something that they did historically there.
Really?
So, you know, it's just another crop in many ways, at least it was back then. And we've raised it to a different level, you know, in the legal and political landscape that has evolved over the last 100 years. But here we are, having completed that full cycle, and like I said, we're happy to be back.
You're not related to the composer, the great composer Wagner, are you?
You know, it's an interesting question, actually.
No, because I didn't realize, and I'm a fan of classical music, and in particular Wagner.
Absolutely.
I've been to several of the Ring Cycle operas, so
there you go.
I wasn't thinking, wow.
My great-grandfather emigrated from the Black Forest area, which is where he lived. And my grandfather looked almost exactly like Wagner when he was older. So it's entirely possible, but I've got no evidence one way or the other. It's a matter of idle curiosity.
Now, JWC is focused primarily on the medical segment or the recreational segment, or equally both?
You know, I think our first focus is on medical. Patients have a need, and we're here to serve that need, and there's a relationship of trust that you build there. And it's important that our patients know that they can trust us to deliver medicine reliably, and that's what we're going to do. That said, you know, I think the rec market is a tremendous opportunity, and it's not something we could ever look away from entirely. So when the product is available, without doing any disservice to our medical patient base, we'll absolutely be there.
Oh, okay. So right now, where do you distribute most of your cannabis? Who are your patients? What's your sort of distribution profile?
Well, you know, they skew heavily toward Ontario, but I'm told that, you know, in recent weeks we've picked up patients all across Canada, from BC to Nova Scotia. So, you know, I think the concept of a very high quality product that's produced under exacting conditions is something that resonates with all Canadians, and so we're seeing people across Canada to express an interest in JWC's medicine.
You bet. So what is the primary difference, if any, between cannabis that is grown aeroponically, and you're the only licensed producer in Canada that grows aeroponically, versus hydroponically or non-hydroponically?
Well, it comes down to variables and their effect. You know, when you grow in a system where you don't have complete control over everything, you can't completely control what comes out of that system. And when you're growing something, a plant, especially something that's as exacting as cannabis is, you know, it's worthwhile to attempt to achieve complete control. So our product is cleaner, more consistent. We eliminate all of those variables and reduce it to a reproducible, repeatable process, which gives us the ability to ensure that our patients get the same medicine every time they buy from us. And this is going to be valuable from the recreational perspective as well. Consumers want to know that when they like a strain and they go out and buy that strain from a given producer, if they come back for more a month, 2 months later, they're going to get the same product. Even if it wasn't grown at the same time or in the same batch, it's still the same product. And that consistency, I think, is going to be a big value add in the years to come.
Sure. Does aeroponically mean or imply more organically than, say, hydroponic?
Not necessarily, no. However, although I can't talk about it much, as the first aeroponic grower in Canada, we have a bit of a better insight into the way aeroponics works, especially with long growth cycle crops such as cannabis. And we have developed a very important new wrinkle on that technology, which I believe will allow us to operate in a fully certified organic fashion. And that'll be the first time in the world that this type of system has been introduced, and the first time in the world that aeroponics and organic have been able to be brought together into the same equation. You know, this is an important time for JWC. It's an important time for these types of advanced cultivation technologies. We have the resources and the will to research this in a way that simply hasn't been done before, and we're coming up with some really fascinating answers.
Mm-hmm. So apart from the extreme levels of control over the variables you mentioned, are there economies of scale that are applied through aeroponics that make it a lower cost of gram of production, or just a more efficient use of the space?
Both, absolutely both. You know, we maximize yield per square foot. We have a quick turnaround time, so we can increase the number of crops per year that we can produce in a given space.
How many crops per year? Excuse me for interrupting.
No, not at all. It varies depending on the flowering time, but the number is between 5.2 and 6.4 crops per year, depending on the flowering cycle.
Yeah, you could never get that in a traditionally growing.
It's extremely unlikely. You know, one of the things that's interesting about our system, because there's no substrate, there's only equipment. At the end of a grow cycle, that equipment comes out at the same point as harvest. We clean it, sterilize it, refurbish it, and put it back in. That is, we replace some minor parts on it. And in the same day, that equipment goes back into service. So there's literally no downtime. And it's the same for our rooms. We don't bring anything into those rooms that could be considered a physical contaminant. There's no dirt in there. It's a complete clean room. So it takes us a very short period of time to turn around and refill that room and put another crop into service. So when we are in our new facility and we're operating about 140 flowering rooms there, 350,000 square feet, my calculations show that we're going to be below 3% empty space on any given day that year. And that's because those are the rooms we're harvesting on that particular day. 2 days later, those rooms are full and back in service. So we create this tremendous efficiency, which is really amazing because when it comes down to it, the cost to produce is also much lower. You know, when you're growing using soil-to-soil substrate, it can cost you $20 to $30 per plant per cycle. But you know, that's something that you have to throw away, and in the end you have to pay to have it disposed of at the end. Our sites cost around $55 from the floor to the top of the plant, and we can reuse those for up to 5 years. That's what we've tested. I believe they'll last between 7 and 10 years, but we haven't had the opportunity. This is a new industry. Right. So you know, those reductions in cost, we're transferring OPEX into CAPEX, are going to allow us to run leaner over time. So it's an increased efficiency, better quality product, better, more consistent product, and a reduced cost of production.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So the does how many different sort of strains are you growing that way right now?
So right now we have 7 strains. 3 of them are available for sale. An additional 2 will be available for sale shortly. And then the last 2 are actually really exciting. We've been testing our new techniques on them, and we've increased our yield for a couple of those up to around 80 grams per square foot per iteration. Now we can do about 6 of those per year, and so when you get right down into the numbers, we're able to yield per square foot on par with or beyond the best in the world. And so the right combination of genetics plus this technology are going to drive us to that new level. So within a month or 2, we'll have those 7 available. Now as we bring our new facility online, we're going to be bringing in a bunch of new genetics. It's my hope that before the end of 2019, we're growing 50 different strains. You know, we've optimized our process within our facility to be able to accommodate a wide variety of strains, and that constant flow of production allows us to keep those strains in stock to the stores and patients that we're supplying.
Go ahead.
I have a question. If you took seeds of a particular strain and you, let's say you did a test where you grew them aeroponically versus traditionally, and then you took the marijuana and tried it, would it be exactly the same effect, or would it be different?
Very different. There are 2 main factors. You know, our system, as we were talking about earlier, we're talking about limits here. We're talking about removing the limits on the plant. The goal with aeroponics is to remove every limit except the genetic limit. In every other system of cultivation, those variables represent hidden limits. What are the limits? It's difficult to know. But once you remove all of them, you'll see a greater expression of cannabinoids, a wider expression of terpenes. You know, we aim for above 2.5% terpene content. That creates a strong, robust flavor. It supports the cohort effect, making it, for many people, a preferable medicine. And in the end, we aim for a higher cannabinoid count. You know, many companies out there have a couple of strains that are above 20% THC. It's our goal to offer no strains that are below 20% THC before the end of 2019 as we refine our genetics pool. And so we're able to drive you know, higher content of medicinal factors, better flavor, and a purer plant material at its end, which means a better end user experience.
How many scientific people do you employ?
Quite a few, actually. It's sort of a surprising thing. When we go out and hire for new growers, we end up getting a lot that have PhDs and master's degrees. I think we have 4 or 5 PhDs and
really?
Almost an equal number of master's degrees. I'd have to check the list.
Sounds like a very scientific company.
It is, very much so. You know, we are a cannabis producing company. You know, my grandfather did it, I do it, I'm passionate about it. But in the end, we're a technology company. And developing new technologies is what's going to drive JWC forward. In the end, it's what's going to drive this industry forward. So I think people want to be a part of that, and people with a lot of understanding want to work with us to help develop the technologies that will define the paradigms that we're using in this industry, you know, 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years from today.
Interesting.
Wow.
All right, Nathan, let's leave it there for now. We're going to come back to you in due course and see how you're making out. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks very much.
Now we're going to take a look at what's happening in Colombia. We're going to talk to our friends at Khiron Life Sciences, trading on the TSX venture under the symbol KHRN, and here is that journey.
The way that I view the Colombian market is it's really like kind of rewinding 5 years ago where we were in Canada at that point. An emerging opportunity that is, you know, very much been untapped. 620 million people living in Latin America, 60 million of those people potentially candidates for treatment of conditions with medical cannabis. That's twice the population of Canada. As one of the first licensees, one of the first to receive quota, we're really tip of the spear.
So we're planning all the operations, we're planning all the financing, we are planning on the symposium for tomorrow to start telling all the doctors, all the patients that Khiron is coming.
This is the first symposium on medical cannabis in Colombia. To present them with the justification from a physiologic, from a medical, from a safety, from an efficacy perspective as to why cannabis-based medicines may be a viable option for some of their patients.
So my role as Chief Compliance Officer here is to bring the same level of compliance that DEA mandates to the pharmaceutical industry. I was previously the Chief of Pharmaceutical Investigations for DEA. I was a special agent with the DEA for 26 years. So to take that level of compliance and apply it here brings instant credibility and legitimacy to this industry.
So at this point in time, it seems Colombia is now in the lead in many respects, especially medically. Is that one of the opportunities that you are seeking to capture for Colombia?
Yes, one of the themes that we wanted to develop in Colombia is scientific research. And that scientific research has to be done with the doctors. The doctors that are going to recommend or prescribe cannabis for their patients in order for them to be confident, to know that there is scientific evidence and support. That's why we prohibited in the law the exportation of the flower. We wanted the flower to be transformed here in Colombia.
The entire area is 45,000 square meters. That will include, the lab area, the extraction. What we've secured with the landowners is an option to lease another 16 hectares. That's 1.6 million square feet. And as you can see, there's plenty of sun here.
Yeah.
And we actually have 12 hours, exact 12 hours every day. We're also connected to an underground well, which is 12 liters per second, which is enough to have the entire 20 hectares, underground water. And we don't have to pay any public utility.
We are establishing the hydroponic cultivation method for climate control. We are using mist and shade and fans and extraction for hot air. We are running more than 60 times the whole volume for the greenhouse per hour.
Yielding 8.6 tons of dry flower per year.
In this greenhouse.
When you look at the capital and the operating costs in comparison to really any other jurisdiction in the world, it's very compelling. Cost per gram on the flower at scale of 10 cents, 35 cents per gram equivalent on the extract.
So, we've left nothing to chance. I know it looks different because it's outside, it's not that controlled, but you can grow this plant in very good conditions and still keep a very good quality control. It looks big.
Interview with, as you said, it would be interesting. It's a scientific company. It's
scientific.
Scientific.
They blinded me with science. Boy, what a lineup we've had today, eh, Woodward? Can you believe it? We got all these people on Facebook. Fiona Fitzmaurice is here. Ed Legenda, Carl Bustani, Brandon Hall, Mike J. Bling. Bling? Interesting. Bruce Richardson. Hello, Bruce. Avika Bijan. Hello, hello. Merkina Mustapik. Marianne Cruz. Yes? Oh, Ed, would you like some water?
Yes, please.
We've just imported some top-notch water for you here. And then over on the YouTube front, what have we got here? We've got 264 viewers. So yeah, the big news, I guess, out is that the Aurora has just announced that it's been approved for uplisting to the New York Stock Exchange. Let's go over and take a quick look at how our indexes are doing, because I'm almost willing to bet that this is essentially going to catalyze, the same problem. We need my NDI thing again. NDI.
What's NDI stand for, do you think?
Network Digital Interface.
Wow.
There, did it work?
Yeah.
NDI. NDI! Yeah, baby! So, stocks are still down, but looks like the bleeding has eased a bit, like especially in the large caps.
They're only down less than 2%.
Let's take a look and see what specifically this news has done for ACB's shares right now. This, of course, is delayed by 20 minutes. We'll see it go by, but so down 0.86%, down 12 cents, 13.86. So Aurora is kind of staging a bit of a turnaround here, and I think it's going to go back.
Aphria is actually up on the day.
And I think, yes, and Aurora will likely be in the green within another hour.
Yeah, this is a very powerful candle here. This big, see the big tail?
Yeah. What's going on there, Ed?
Well, you know what? That's what you want to see. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing, you know, if we close like this, that's very bullish candle, then we probably are going to make an assault in the next few days on the old high.
Well,
but I think that we wanted to tell our viewers again that, you know, it seems the big action is moving more and more into what the investors perceive to be the best companies.
Yeah.
Is that a fair statement? Is that what, you know, like ACB's always in the news, Aphria's in the news, Weeds obviously, or I should say Canopy Growth, and then there's several others obviously.
Yeah. No, it's incredible.
But it's a lot of small ones haven't done a thing.
Yeah.
But you know what? Like today, learning about Nathan's company, I thought that was very interesting. I'm going to take him up on it, and when I go cruising by Kitchener someday, I'm going to pull in there and
Well, we'll go up together. We'll bring the whole crew. We'll bring Fraser. I just noticed on our website it says, look at this. As of October 18th, cannabis is legal. October 18th, that's tomorrow. Can somebody maybe get that changed? It's as of October 17th, which is today. Hello! I think that might be done by our West Coast office. We don't know, but let's try to get that fixed up.
Okay, maybe they made it legal on today, but officially tomorrow.
No, it was actually last night, officially today. As anybody who was out, Ricky, were you out late last night?
I was.
And was there lots of festivities around the legalization?
There was many festivities.
Are we going to see some today on our video?
Yes, you will.
Woohoo!
And are you?
I was asking for you.
I'm sure they were.
I know.
4 East Media, our production partners, were out diligently collecting footage for us last night in our absence. Why? Because Ed and I are a little too old for this nonsense.
Well, I'm a lot too old. You're a little too old.
A little too old. I prefer to have a clear head during the day and a good night's sleep at this point.
And why do you think we have all this energy to do this show today?
I know, it's
all
crazy.
day long. Yeah.
This is what happens when you don't smoke dope all night.
Yeah, I was
pleasantly amused, pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. No,
let's see if there's been any reversals generally in some of these other issuers. I would think that the NYSE listing of Aurora would actually have a positive effect on the whole sector. Now, so far, we're not seeing this.
Well, you know, there's been a big turn here. And you can see it again in the big candle, the today's candle, which is a green candle.
Yeah.
So it opened lower.
Yeah.
And it's gained dramatically. So
this could end up, despite the minor sort of trickling of blood down the street, this could end up a green day.
What I wouldn't like to see is a nice rally to where things are all kind of unchanged, and then the next day or two it just sort of can't get going any further.
Well, this is the thing now, in the absence of any clear future sector-wide catalysts. So this is the last known sector-wide catalyst, right? The next unknown sector-wide catalyst is potentially the announcement of legal cannabis in the United States federally. We just also recently heard that the UK is heading towards legalization. So all these different markets are yet out there, value catalysts that will have an uplifting effect, I think, on the whole sector. In the meantime, in the absence of those sector-wide value catalysts, we can expect the market to drift as people take money off the table and redeploy it into newer opportunities. Is that a fair assessment, Edward?
Yeah, that's, you know,
does your technical analysis match that?
If we see, like for instance, we've got a good rally underway right now from our lows, even though they're sort of down. But if it can't get going over the next day or so, maybe the people will say, well, maybe I'll take some money off the table, which will cause the thing to slide a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you know, after
in the absence of
sector-wide value catalyst. Yeah. Well, you know, I want to back out to the 5-year look.
Memorize that phrase, sector-wide value catalyst.
I'll get a little cue card for you.
I don't even know the letters. So many letters. Jeez.
Exactly.
Gee, Jesus.
Jesus Cristo. Okay, so this is the Midas Letter Canadian Cannabis Index. So these are all the CSE listed companies. Actually, these have become very.
I wouldn't mind taking a look at the chart of the JWSA.
The JWC.
There you go.
JWCA.
That one too. That one, anything to do with JW.
JW what? No, so JWC down 3.45%.
But that's really come off, hasn't it? Like
yeah.
that. Look at that. That was $1.30, $1.35 there 2 weeks ago, and look at that. This is probably, again, if I was going to trade something, I'd say here, this action right here. I like that. That's a nice little entry point, I think.
What about this little candle out here? That's you know, this little one down here that's showing.
Which
the far right one?
This
that
last
little
one.
Tiny one. Yeah.
This is the one I'm telling you I like.
Oh, that's the one you like.
I like that one.
Why do you like that one? It looks a little red.
Well, it's because it's out. It's showing like it looks like it's statistically a rare event. That's all. I'd like to see it on a Bollinger, but I'm pretty sure.
You're pretty sure you like that?
Well, I like when I hear there's lots of science in something. You know, it sets it apart. You know,
gives you a warm and
like
fuzzy.
If, you know, if you're saying to me, yeah, I got some plants growing in my backyard, come on over, we'll twist some.
Yeah.
Or come over to my laboratory and let's have some aeroponic.
Yeah. Look at Organigram is the first company from the large caps to head into green territory. It's up 3 cents now at $7.32 a share, just after we rolled our little Organigram presentation.
Which one?
Organigram, OGI. Oh, you can't see it because the line is in the way.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Okay, okay.
So that's positive. Let's see what else is.
Can you rank them? Can you rank that last line there? Oh, too late.
Right. What do you want to rank it as by market cap?
Yeah. No, rank it as in plus or minus.
Oh, okay. Well, that was. So those are the ones that are up. Intelligenics Technologies is up 3 cents to $1.13 or 2.7%. CO2 Grow up a penny at 2.20 cents. Naturally Splendid Enterprises. FluroTech, this is the one that I'm really interested in because I do believe that this company is going to start to emulate the value of BLO, especially once we go toe-to-toe. We're going to test both machines and see which one actually works better.
Toe-to-toe with blow.
Toe-to-toe with blow. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
This could be dangerous,
Say it ain't
Edward.
so. Say it ain't so. Toe-to-toe with blow.
Boy, that would be really dangerous. Boy, then imagine trying to get us to stop talking. No kidding, eh?
Yeah.
But yeah, so FluroTech, we're about a week away from getting our machine, I understand, and that's going to be a game-changing event because now we can buy cannabis and we can test it right here, Edward.
And if we were in France, we'd be getting La Machine.
La Machine. La Machine. So yeah, so at 1 hour we have coming up is our friends from Follow the Money Group. And they've got a full show today, 2 hours of extravaganza, stellar guests, crystalline insights into things that you could not possibly imagine dreaming up yourself. Anyways, they're gonna relieve us for 2 hours. We're going to probably reboot the machine at 12:30 in half an hour. We have Matt Bottomley coming here to join us shortly from Canaccord, and apart from that, it's just a big stellar day out there in the cannabis space, wouldn't you say, Ed?
Well,
there's let's see. I want to look at this Wayland Group Corp piece that. Oh wait, no, that was from Ben yesterday. Anyways, so Ben's got all these great things coming for Wayland Group. I think these companies a bit in the clutches of a short strategy here. However, we're going to put the squeeze on them in a big way, aren't we, Edward?
Short squeeze.
Short squeeze. Anyways.
Okay.
Let's see here. Let's go back to the cannabis indexes. Let's see who is best performer among the small caps. All right, Terracin down 13.4% now. Benchmark up 6%, 52 cents on the news that they've got their new CEO. Oh, I wanted to see how the ACB is. I want to see that press release. Did they put it out or is this a rumor? Let's see. Aurora receives sales license for Aurora adult consumer legalization, announces conversion of debentures. Interesting. Let's go to a search of, I'm going to search NYSE Aurora and see if we can find an official press release. Market Watch. Oh, files for its stock to be traded on Oh, this is the US symbol here. Nope, no sign of it in any official press release.
Well.
So they filed to, he did say that he thought it was going to happen in October. All right, now we are going to take a little trip to Hydropothecary in Quebec, and we're going to have a chat with Sebastien St. Louis from our visit there earlier this month. Here's that show.
In Quebec.
Here we have a 22,000 square foot flowering bay in which we operate a continuous grow cycle. So what that means is we harvest every 10 days and our customers always have access to top quality fresh marijuana. There's a whole ton of lighting and electricity that goes into marijuana production. The largest inputs between electricity, water, and labor are all cheaper in Quebec. So it gives us a really nice insulated cost advantage, which has been one of the reasons we've been able to achieve 89 cents per gram production cost.
One of the things I've noticed is that you seem to have pretty much the highest gutter heights of any greenhouse operation I've seen yet.
So every foot of height on a large facility as this represents thousands of cubic feet of air. It allows us to dial in environmental controls that much more for much less energy expenditure. All the greenhouse production facilities at Hydropothecary were custom built for cannabis. There's no retrofit here. In quality marijuana, it's very important to preserve the trichome, the oil gland on the leaf at a microscopic level. And that's why Hydropothecary is very focused on hand-trimmed, hand-manicure. You really have to look to the aesthetic qualities of the plant itself, the shape of the bud, the size, and then especially what sort of terpene profile does it have? Is it like our after dinner? Does it have a pleasant berry smell and a dark purple hue? So here we have the first step in oil production, the production of our decarb product, which is an activated cannabis powder. So until you activate it, you're mostly dealing with THC in its acid form, which means it's not fully bioavailable. Hydropothecary has developed a proprietary process by which we activate it for the customer, which means you can add it to your food, you can take it in a pill, and it has a long-lasting effect of over 20 hours. And behind me here we have our extraction systems, where we are currently extracting some resin that'll make its way into our elixir product. Today, Hydropothecary is producing 4 metric tons a year, so 4 million grams of marijuana. In July, our production capacity actually goes up to 25 million grams, and then in December 2018, we will be at 108 million grams of production and transformation capacity.
What do you anticipate being your sort of gross price per kilo?
Somewhere around $3,000 per kilo on a wholesale basis, until you get into advanced products such as elixir, maybe ranging all the way up to $5,000 or $6,000 per kilo. I think our revenue will be 95–99% weighed towards adult use recreational, because we do expect some very significant contracts, first in the province of Quebec, and then of course in the rest of Canada. The competition in Quebec is a little light. We certainly encourage new from Quebec companies to apply. Hydropothecary is here to help them. We want to build a robust industry here in Quebec, but at the moment Hydropothecary is the only Quebec-based licensed producer.
Hey, welcome back everybody. We're live here today, all day, every day now. Cannabis Day is here. Cannabis is legal in Canada, and to talk about that with me now is Matt Bottomley. He's a senior analyst, or I don't know if you're a senior analyst yet. Whoa, I just gave you a...
sounds good.
I just gave you a promotion. Anyways, Matt's a equity analyst with Canaccord Genuity. Matt, welcome back.
Good afternoon.
Okay, Matt, let's start off with, in terms of the opening of the OSC online, the Ontario Cannabis Store, not OSC, OCS. Boy, that's confusing. Who, in your view, from Canaccord, do you think is going to be able to perform the best in the context of these government-sponsored agencies?
Well, I think scale is important. Purchase orders from all the provincial regulators is going to be important. So, I think the leaders in the space are the large cap now, I guess you could call it, companies like the Canopys, Auroras, Aphrias. Tilray is definitely in there. I think CannTrust looks very attractive as well. They've got, for their size of their cultivation, quite a large number of purchase orders throughout the country, so they're doing well. I think that getting into these stores or onto these online platforms as a starting point is critical in order to start building brand equity, because as far as I can tell, it's anecdotal, but just sort of being around this summer and walking around Toronto and other places in Ontario, Tweed has their name absolutely everywhere, and I think in an anecdotal way they do have some brand awareness. But other than that, people are sort of learning as they go, and there's no brick and mortar in Ontario, so you pull up this website, which we were looking at just a few minutes ago, and all the packaging kind of looks the same. All the brands are sort of new brands for the most part. So I think that definitely getting a breadth of purchase orders from all the provinces will determine winners and winning brands. What I did notice actually this morning, just going through the website, was there was and again, I don't know if each SKU or each unit that you see on the website is proportional. Maybe some companies have only a limited number of SKUs, but they have a ton of supply of them.
Right.
But very, very back of the envelope, it seemed like Aurora had a very dominant presence on this website. They had them and HEXO were the two leaders in terms of the oil offerings. I think it was Aurora and only a couple of others on the pre-rolls, and I think individual SKUs, even for dried bud, they had the most, and that includes, of course, the med relief products as well. So that, at least from what I could glean, just take it with a grain of salt. Back of the envelope, that's who seemed to have a very strong presence on the website this morning.
Right, they're showing 50 SKUs on the Ontario Cannabis website here, and it's really interesting that almost all of them are THC dominant. It's very hard to find anything that's got a high CBD count, which is interesting because I guess the recreational aspect is perceived to be driven by THC and not CBD, which is viewed as more therapeutic medicinal.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in very simple terms, I would agree, but, getting a good 1-to-1 ratio, getting something that's a high CBD, like high CBD vape pens in many medical markets, and even medical markets that now have recreational going in are very popular. You don't have to go insane by smoking, the highest THC amount. I've heard some anecdotes as well from other producers who say, everyone's thinking you have to have this like 90%, most potent THC out there in order to get market share. But at the end of the day, with alcohol, you're not looking to get some sort of 350 proof thing that's just going to absolutely ruin your night. So I don't think, having the most THC is necessarily, a critical factor, but a breadth of offerings is. And clearly, to your point, most of these are THC driven.
Yeah. Do you see any companies that you feel are going to outperform some of the other ones specifically? Are there any names that you would feel comfortable putting forth as probably a premium opportunity relative to the pack?
Sure. Well, I think a couple things. One is, and this is not using an anecdote from looking at the website, which I think is useful, and we'll see how that website evolves, but just looking, again, going back to these purchase orders, I think it's very clear that that Canopy is going to have the largest reach in Canada. So will Aurora. I think Aurora and Aphria, for that matter, have, they're basically everywhere. So the question is, how are their brands going to stack up? So I think, my view would be, and I haven't seen yet, I know there's some news reports, but I haven't seen a live shot of inside of these stores like in Quebec where there's brick and mortar. I would like to see how much of a presence one LP has over the other, because it's very restrictive. But I definitely think, those three companies are the leaders in the pack for sure. I think Tilray is probably in that group, and I expect them all to perform well. Relative to valuation, I actually would probably pick Aphria as number one, because Aphria, in my view, is definitely going to have a top 3 or 4 market share, at least to start. When you just look at how many provinces they're in, what their capacity is, their ability to get products to market, they're going to be number 3, number 4, no problem. And they have a $4 billion valuation. All of their most immediate peers, some of them are as high as $20 billion now. I haven't looked in the last 5 minutes, so don't hold me to it. I know these things move around.
Right.
So relative to execution and valuation, I would definitely put my money on Aphria as we sit today.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's perhaps not surprising that you picked 3 of the companies who were among the very first to be in the industry and have had the longest time to sort of get their act together and understand the market and everything?
Well, it takes time to build these facilities. Initially, when I first started looking at this space, there was maybe 30 producers. I think initially there was like 12 that started, but there was like 30 producers, and I would watch it and it would take like a month or 6 weeks to go from 35 to 36. Now every Friday there's 20 new ones or whatever it is.
Right. Do you think now that recreational market is active and live in Canada, that there's going to be a shift from the valuation of these companies on speculative future value towards actual financial performance in Q1 and Q2 as these companies start to report their performance as a result of the recreational market?
It will become increasingly more relevant and then increasingly more important after that. I think, I don't know on timing for that. There's a lot of, the next sort of recreational speculation is going to be medical international markets. That's going to be the next thing that people are sort of buying for, and they obviously are today. So I think that there's some risk, second half of 2019, when a couple of quarters go through, when everyone for the most part is EBITDA negative, it's easy to just sell the story for the future. When companies start, penetrating that break-even platform and start getting 5, 10, who knows, $50 million of EBITDA, that's when people will say, well, wait a second, if I take a bear case scenario and put modest growth on that, the multiples might look a little wonky. So it's going to become increasingly important, but not today. I mean, this is not turning of a switch in my view. This is a dial, it's moving a dial slowly, and the Canadian government is doing very slowly. We don't have brick and mortar in many places. We don't have product breadth when it comes to vape pens and edibles yet. We might have websites that are selling out. We'll track that as it goes. So yeah, I don't think that the next quarter, which by the way won't even have this in it anyways, will matter. And I think even the first couple of quarters there might be a gimme in investors' mind. And lastly, I'll say actually is what's driving it a lot now is just the scarcity of investment opportunity in the US. So outside of fundamentals, we're having more and more companies list on the NYSE and NASDAQ. There's, I think with Aurora in there now, there's only 4 of them. So there's a scarcity of investment vehicles, if you want to invest in the Canadian licensed producers. And then you have all of these strategics like Constellation and the like that might drive the sector higher. So I think those headlines are going to matter more in the next 6 months to a year than what these companies do fundamentally. But eventually you got to have that underlying cash flow or EBITDA to justify anything, certainly.
Okay, so this was the last visible and known value catalyst that could be considered a sector-wide catalyst. What do you see as the next potential sector-wide catalyst that will continue to drive value into the market?
I think this is still a catalyst-rich environment. So I think retail licenses in various, we have some points now in Alberta and BC, but certainly in Ontario. So presumably these licensed producers were kind of left out in the cold when it comes to the licenses that the Ontario government's going to give out for retail. They said, LPs can only have 1 per, and I think you have to attach it to a cultivation. But it's a little tricky to me with respect to what defines an LP. If the LP is just your legal entity that's registered with Health Canada, well, any of these guys, Canopy, can have joint ventures outside of that entity, and that's not technically an LP, and they can go in for licensing. So I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how to paper that up, but I would think that there still is potential catalyst for these guys to get penetration into Ontario retail. I think just more clarity on who's selling what and where, because a lot of the press releases we've seen have been the first purchase order or the initial kickoff. We're going to see if, I expect obviously HEXO to be dominant in Quebec, but we're going to see which producers get market awareness in which provinces, and I think that as soon as the provinces allow for more public disclosure when it comes to who's buying and what amounts, that's a catalyst. And then the one we mentioned already is just other strategics sniffing around between consumer brand products, between tobacco. We saw that rumor with Aphria last week, between big alcohol, pharmaceutical. These are all strategics that if there's a breath out there that someone thinks that one of these strategics is going to come in, we see these, the stocks go nuts. Now, I'm not saying there's fundamental underpinning to that, but it's another reason why I wouldn't bet against the sector in the next 6 months to a year.
So some of the companies have really caught a tailwind, and their valuations are, as you say, upwards of $20 billion in some cases. Other companies who seem to be in the same sort of similar, they look like those other big companies in large part, but they haven't caught that tailwind. And so there's, you look at it and you think maybe there's some opportunity. I'm thinking particularly of a company like Wayland, or formerly Marican, that had sort of a regulatory cloud over it. Now in the past, as evidenced by the fact that they've cleared a prospectus with the OSC, and now they've got this huge runway of growth opportunities. Is that a name that you're following?
Well, I'm research restricted on them today, so I can't, but we do cover them. But I can speak more broadly to, like Organigram or HEXO or CannTrust. These are names that are, they're not low, some of them are upwards of $1 billion or more, but when you, to your point, when you look at the infrastructure they have built, when you look at the amount that they're selling through the, Ontario cannabis stores or in other places, they're not that, far behind like a Canopy. They're certainly not anywhere close to the scale of a Canopy, but in terms of what they're doing today, they're not, 20 times behind or 10 times behind. So you really have to look, in my view, to international optionality. I think Canopy and some of the other names I mentioned absolutely have the number one spot when it comes to optionality in foreign markets. We've seen, the UK legalize their initial legislation for medical. The German re-tendering process is due in early November, and a lot of these LPs will be in that. Latin America is getting a lot more news flow these days. You've seen many of the producers invest down there. So I think that's the big way to look at it, is unless you have an international unless you have an international optionality that's significantly better than your peers, there shouldn't be these $5 billion deltas in absolute dollars between a lot of these companies, I think.
Interesting. All right, Matt, we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you very much for coming in today, and we'll come back to you again soon.
Sounds great.
All right, we're going to take a look at Cronos' Peace Naturals operation out in Stayner, Ontario now. Here's that clip.
I was at a fund where we looked at everything and anything, and we saw Peace Naturals as key. The largest land package of any of the licensed producers, access to free on-site water, methane cogeneration, phase 3 power, so it was a huge advantage. This was the first facility to get licensed under the MMPR. It's exciting to see what we've done with this and where we've gone since. You can hear the extraction machines working away. We have extraction machines working 24/7. We can actually control them from the phone. We wanted to make sure everything was easy for people to join the company. So you've got Building 1, Building 2, Building 3, very creative names, Building 4. So welcome to Peace Naturals. As a licensed producer, we don't want patients to come to us for medicine because it's legal. We want them to come to us because of the quality. So quality is the #1 priority. This is a proprietary strain we have called Infinity. This is a very high THC strain, and that's quite popular in Germany right now. If we were to allocate all of our supply to Germany, it still wouldn't scratch the surface. But for us, it's a balance. We're a Canadian-based company, and we want to take care of Canadian demand first. And you can see this is still a few weeks, from maturing. The leaves haven't got to the point where you start seeing color adding in during flush. But that's the quality and the care you put in each plant to be able to have something that's differentiated. So one of the things we do at Peace Naturals is use different light spectra on different genetics in strain-specific rooms to get different effects and different results. And to do that, you have to switch things up a little bit.
So here in this room we have the very purple spectrum, which has a lot of blue and a lot of red, which creates a purple color. And with this purple color, we are able to capitalize the anthocyan production in these cultivars, create a photo bleaching effect, to create a white flower, which is very unique in the cannabis space.
This is Building 4. This is the largest purpose-built indoor facility in the world. I don't know if you can even pick it up on the camera how far it spans and how wide it is. Just say you don't want to forget your keys in the facility. It's a long walk. If you think about it, when you've got a baby plant, if you were to leave that in one room the entire time, you're getting much less efficiency than if you have that in a room specific where the plants are closer together. So we divide it, and then the benches will automatically move the plants into the appropriate stage. And as they get larger, they take up more space and they move into rooms specifically designed for flower. Is it best to have poly, diffused poly, glass, diffused glass? The one you're looking at now is glass. But if you walk over to this head house, you'll notice this is a diffused poly. So it's a little bit different in the way that it deals with the light. It's making sure that when we move into some of the other jurisdictions or in other parts of the world where it does make a lot of sense to do greenhouse versus indoor, we already have the technology, we know exactly how our genetics perform, and we're able to roll things out seamlessly and efficiently.
We're not just engaging in accumulating and adopting the best practices from the horticultural and agricultural industry. We're also hiring scientists, including myself, with PhDs that are able to evaluate whether best practice is applicable to our growing methodology. That way we are staying always on top of the game and are able to grow the highest quality cannabis and having the greatest yields.
Science!
So what we are looking here in a good harvest and a good plant structure is a very tight nodal spacing to allow for big bud development. Is something that our customers really like and appreciate.
You know, me and Mike were in nice finance jobs in New York City, Manhattan, and what we've built from just this barn when Mike first brought me up here, it is absolutely incredible. We're now making Stayner, Ontario, our home, and we're building an amazing team. We have over 100 employees now. We're so happy to be in Canada, and we're loving every minute.
Look at alcohol. Which alcohol company is the best because they produce the most or the cheapest? It's who has the best beer, who has the best wine, who has the best liquor. And that's what our focus is product quality.
Hey, welcome back. Look who's in my chair. It's Brandon Colwell. He's with Follow the Money Group. You guys are going to take over at 1 o'clock today, aren't you?
Very soon, very soon. Got a huge lineup still to go.
I know.
Lots of different things.
So much fun. Brandon, have you tried to buy any cannabis online?
I haven't, but I've been reading things of people saying, this is amazing, or it's completely sold out.
Right.
So it's been 50-50 so far.
Okay. Well, I'm going to... Oh,
Showbiz
right. Actually, I
put it on. You can hear me right now. I'll say this. Welcome back to Midas Letter Live. We're here with James West and Brandon Call looking to buy some cannabis.
I turned it on to mute to go to the washroom because I didn't want the audience listening to me tinkle.
That's better.
Yes. So, all right, looking at the, is our NDI up? Our NDI is up. And here is the Ontario Cannabis Store. And I've just been doing a little preliminary shopping here. They're listing 50 products right now. We are told that there was over 36,000 orders in progress earlier today, yeah, because you get an order number that started apparently or ostensibly at 1. But so you look up here, actually the mouse doesn't work the same way here as it does on there. So in the upper right hand corner, you can see that I've got 5 grams out of 30 grams limit in my bag. And so I'm going to open up this up. I've spent $75.50 before. So far, I've decided to go with a pack of pre-rolled Aurora sativa pre-rolls and then a pack of indica pre-rolls. Each of them, interestingly, are perfectly balanced THC to CBD.
Yeah, you don't see that often, actually.
It's not a natural distribution of the cannabinoids in the plant. A plant will typically be very predominantly either THC or CBD, but very seldom will it be both. So I guess this is an attempt to appeal to a different demographic or market. But so we're going to continue shopping here. There's Broken Coast. We know that that's a brand that is owned by Aphria. They're selling some 18 to 24% THC.
19 to 26, that'll put you,
Ruxton.
For anybody who hasn't smoked cannabis before, try the 6% one first.
Yeah, definitely.
26% will absolutely put you on your ass for the rest of the day.
That will green you.
That is an indica couch lock right there.
that's a good one. Okay, so let's see what else we can buy here. I don't really see, here's some pre-rolls. So it looks like they're selling these, what are these? Critical Super Silver Haze pre-roll. So this is an oil spliff?
I don't know what that is.
Critical Super Silver. Well, you know what? Here's how to find out.
Is it just one joint for 20 bucks?
That's what I'm wondering.
I feel like I'm buying wine from like a resort or something now.
Yeah. I'm not going to buy any of the pure THC ones just because they don't do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
I like the balance. Ace Valley, I've heard a lot about those guys. They're going to be on our show soon. Are they going to be on your show?
I don't have them as of yet.
Okay.
If they come by, they'll be on our show.
There we go. Look at all these things. Like, it's certainly, the one thing I got to say is the packaging looks all the same.
Yeah.
Like, apart from these small little branding bits, they're really not giving much of a chance for these companies to brand.
It's funny because when you first saw Hydropothecary, They had really nice design. I remember looking at their investor presentation when we made a whole list of like 100 companies that we wanted to have all their investor decks right there. And we're looking through Hydropothecary, and they had a really good page where it showed their products, not the actual product, but the containers it'd be in.
Right.
I'm almost positive, judging by this, they had to scrap it all.
Yeah, it looks like
now the new rules. This is a while ago before those rules really cemented themselves.
Yeah. Which cannabis companies just follow the money really liking these days? I mean, I think, full disclosure, Wayland Group is a mutual client, and so obviously we are excited about having them as a client, and they've got some great stuff coming.
Yeah. Funny enough, one of the ones I've always been admired because I hear a lot of good feedback from them is Broken Coast. We just went over them. Broken Coast, I remember I just randomly asked people if they smoke cannabis, do you buy from, do you have a dealer that you buy from, or do you go from an LP? And the vast amount of people who really love their LP over anyone else was Broken Coast.
Is that right?
That's dozens of people I've asked over the last little while. Really enjoyed their cannabis.
Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna add some Broken Coast here just because we're gonna try that. Oh, look, they've got indica drops here. 13 and 13 milligrams. Ooh, those will put those. That's going to change your attitude.
Yeah, it was funny actually. Although edibles aren't allowed yet, a friend of mine had these suckers. He's like, "Hey, would you like a sucker?" I was like, "Sure, why not?"
Right.
Anyway, we're sitting down, we're watching the hockey game, and I don't consume cannabis all that often. I don't smoke it, but I don't mind edibles. And all of a sudden, I was ready to go home and drive, and I looked at him like, I don't know if I could drive home. he's like, what do you mean? Like, where's the packaging for that? We look 100 milligrams of THC was that one sucker. So you look at these, that's a lot of THC.
Yeah.
You got to be really careful if you are going to those gray market dispensaries. Be mindful of some of those products. They're very different.
Yeah, it's interesting that the OSC website, now of course we're going to give, or the OCS, I keep confusing, the Ontario Securities Commission with the Ontario Cannabis Store.
I understand why.
Probably you're going to want to visit the OCS before you have to visit the OSC, should that case arise. I noticed
actually, I did an interview with the two brothers from them actually.
Redecan,
private company.
Really?
I believe they're in the London area. They were like the 17th or 18th LP. They were very early on.
Is that right? No urge to go public, I guess.
No urge to go public. They're doing their own thing. I spoke to them. They said they don't want to go public.
Really?
We're able to continue what we're doing now. We have a good footprint.
Right.
We're going to keep moving forward. I remember seeing them in provincial deals. I can't recall which ones, but they're doing their own thing. And you know what? I think it's family owned or largely family owned.
Yeah.
If you can keep those profits for you and not anyone else.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think that being a public company as a cannabis company is important because you're so restricted from advertising and marketing as a private company that your only avenue to get your name out there is to be a public company and have a performance that people watch, and it generates buzz about dialogue and conversation in the social media space about these companies. The ones that are private, like this, today's the first day I've heard of Redecan.
See, and that's the problem. A lot of these private companies, Havana is another company that I started looking into. They're looking to go public in the next little while, but they were also like the 36 or something like that LP a long time ago, but no one knew about them because they weren't public. You couldn't invest in them. Or I should say few people. I should say no one. I'm sure they've got plenty of medical clients by now.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see. It's funny that they don't actually have, like, you'd think there'd be the ability to browse by, oh, here's a filter. Let's try that. Plant type, choose indica, THC.
You can't do company.
You can't search by brand name, which is interesting.
I wonder, is that in the law somewhere? Like, is that somewhere they're trying to make it even, or?
I don't know. Look at this. They have the maximum THC. Well, where'd that go?
It was filter sort. That's what you went to earlier, right?
Is 26%. Now, I happen to know that there are some strains in the U.S. that are tracking at 35% and above THC.
Higher, yeah.
So that's interesting that I guess we have, maybe there's a limit, and only up to 16% CBD. So that's
I wonder if that is a limit, actually. If it's a limit, or if it's more so like if they're over 26. You know, sometimes you go to like Cuba or something like that, you see alcohol, it says 90 proof, but really that thing is
right.
You shouldn't be drinking it. I wonder if it's kind of like if you get over that certain amount, fine, you're good. Or if they actually cut you off. If you get over 26, you're not allowed here.
That's quite possible. But anyway, so, oops, there I am looking at the wrong thing again. Looking at us watching them, watching us watching them. So,
The cannabis inception.
Let's see. Like the Redican, for example, having not really heard of it before and knowing it's not a public company, I'm not really in such a hurry to try their product, so much as I am going to be interested in trying the products who I've met the CEOs, they're coming into the office. So this is an Aurora product, San Rafael, right? Yeah. Because they bought MedRelief, and that was...
San Rafael, they had a San Rafael 71, that beer. Have you seen the commercial? Have you heard the commercial yet?
No.
It's a commercial, and it's like, we'd love for you to come try our beer. And we'd love for you to also, and they say it like 6 different times throughout a 30-second radio commercial. It was smart.
Edison
did that good job.
This is an Organigram brand here. Now, Edison I've been dying to try, but it looks like there's no high CBD, so I'm going to try. They're all 15 to 20% THC, which is not egregious. But I want to see what the full range of Edison brands is here. Excuse me, whoa!
Oh, okay, so you can at least still pull it up if you actually go.
Yeah,
okay.
You search it. So Casablanca, it's interesting, it only has the THC listing, which I guess indicates that Edison Reserve. Now this is one I have to try. Let's see, ships in 1 to 3 business days, $5 flat fee. Let's add one to the bag and see what size that is. Casablanca Reserve. See, this is funny. Okay, so that's $80.
$80 for how much is it?
Well, it's upped me to 12 of my 30 grams. So this is incredible.
So 7 grams?
You're allowed to buy 30 grams a day. Show me one individual who can smoke 30 grams of weed in a day. Show me one family who can consume 30 grams of weed in a day.
That's insane.
For me, 30 grams is about a year's supply.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
Oh, yeah.
I roll a doob and I smoke 1 puff. I put it out because that's good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Especially when
that's very high, actually. Very, very high.
Especially when it's above, 22% THC. Like, that's 1 puff stuff for me.
They think there's some serious connoisseurs are coming through here.
Well, I don't
30 grams, I don't know anyone. I know people who smoke weed all day.
Right.
They don't smoke.
Well, I know people who smoke heavy THC loads. They'll smoke multiple doobs per day, but they're all under 30.
Yeah.
Like all of them are under 30. So that is exclusively the domain of the very young.
Yeah.
And this is interesting because it's like, I don't think that the people managing the cannabis, regulation sort of document set are cognizant of how different potencies and different combinations of THC, CBD actually impact the user. Yeah. Because having the ability to buy 30 grams in a single day, it just strikes me as, first of all, it strikes me as ridiculous to have a limit on how much you can buy per day, because is it per day, is it per week? Can I buy 30 grams per day every day?
Does not say either.
It just says 30 gram limit. Let's go.
I wonder if it's per order, or when you finish, it'll actually tell you, hey, this is yours for a month.
Oh, it actually says there is a maximum limit of 30 grams per order. Checkout will not be permitted if your order exceeds this limit.
I wonder if it's just so you can't buy it, and then kind of like with tickets at a concert and all that, and you buy all the tickets, and then you jump the prices up and sell it to everyone else. So they're making it so you don't become an online dealer.
I mean, but look at this. So right away, all the predictions we can see in the Ontario market, all the predictions about there being a shortage of cannabis on day one are now proven to be completely false.
Yeah.
So it's not just is there no shortage, there is an abundance, with the Ontario Cannabis Store still offering over 50 SKUs of various cannabis products. So if we're thinking that thing is wrong, and this is one of the key arguments of the people who are the ultra bulls of this sector, saying, oh, are you kidding? There's going to be a huge shortage of legal cannabis on day one. Well, we can now safely call bullshit.
Yeah, on day one at least.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. What province? I was reading it earlier. A certain province, their online store is out.
Oh, is that right?
They're sold out. I want to say it's not your major like BC, Ontario. It's a smaller one.
Okay.
Nova Scotia. I'd have to look up. Hopefully, we'll have it from the next time I hop on here. But I think certain products and certain companies are going to get sold out. If you know a certain company and everyone's like, oh, I got to buy their product.
Well, as the social media goes out there and everybody says, oh no, this is the good stuff, this is the good stuff, everybody rushes over there.
I can see Tweed. I know Tweed has been stockpiling for a long time. They were talking about it as well.
Fraser, I was thinking that I didn't really want to interrupt the stream completely, like for half an hour, because there's like 300 people on, and that would just be gone in a heartbeat ahead of Follow the Money, which would be cruel to them. So I want to keep it going and hand it off, and we'll take swing shifts on lunch.
Sure.
Jump in and out. Is that okay with you guys on the Tri Crasher?
It will affect their Facebook stream and stuff like that.
Oh, because they have to switch over. Yeah, no. So that's what I'm saying though. Brazo was suggesting I quit at 12:30 and give it a half an hour. I don't want to do that. I want to quit at 12:55 so that still the audience is engaged a bit, waiting for these guys to start, instead of having a big desert and having to rebuild the audience again. Does that work for you guys?
As you wish.
Okay.
I don't know if that was picked up or not.
Hilarious. So that's interesting. There are up to almost 300 viewers on our YouTube. And
that's fantastic.
On the Facebook. Let's see, where'd we get to here?
Well, a lot of people are curious, right? They're like, we've been talking about this for years, let alone, I mean, probably 4 years or so, 5 years, but actual legalization maybe 2.5 since we actually said Trudeau came up and said, hey, we're going to do this.
Right.
But it's just interesting. All that time is leading up today, and look at the markets. Right. I was talking with Carl and Greg earlier about what happened, and I said a couple weeks ago I strongly think there's going to be a sell-off, and I was like, oh, everyone knows what the news is. Why would there be a sell-off? Because they can paint it as a sell-off. So you see on Friday, you see there was quite a sell-off on Friday. I swear these guys sell off, short it, come back on Monday. Monday rocketed. That's them covering their shorts, and then they're able to buy back a little bit. But then Tuesday and today, they drove it right down again.
Really?
And I think a couple things were rebounding. I think Aphria went green last I checked. OGI I think was green. A few of the larger LPs, but they're just playing games.
Yep.
They're playing games. I think you're going to see that for the next little while until you get a massive deal come in. And if you're a CIBC, if you're an RBC, if you're a tobacco company, if you're an alcohol company, are you going to make that deal a few days before legalization, then risk a sell the news?
Yep.
Or are you going to do it the day of or after?
Exactly.
Because now it's legal too, so you can go to your shareholders and be like, look, I invested in a legal company. What do you on my ass for?
Right.
So it's interesting. I think it just takes one.
So what do you think is, what do you see being potentially the next big value catalyst in the space that lifts the whole sector?
Well, we were all talking about, was it Altria? I keep getting that name wrong.
Altria, yeah.
That could definitely be a huge one. I still think larger alcohol companies should come over. They can't not.
Right.
I look at Molson Coors. They finally did come over about 6 months ago. They had a press release saying, basically, watch out, our next quarter is going to be terrible. And warning people for how bad it was. Because they're saying in legal states where there was legal cannabis in the United States, they were having significant falls in beer sales. It's true. A lot of people I know, they don't want to go out and get hammered every single night, but they don't mind if they're going to have smoke a joint or have some sort of edible or oils just relax. So it will be interesting. But no, one of those, but I think it's going to be a bank. I think it's going to be like CIBC, RBC, one of the ones who haven't really come into the game yet. BMO and TD have already made their footprint. BMO being the leader, TD being like, okay, I'll finally come in now.
Right.
And I think their coverage of cannabis was awful for the longest time, but hopefully you guys are getting better.
Yeah.
I think they have a whole division now, actually. I do. But no, I think it'll be a big bank, because if a big bank comes in, what if a big bank comes in and says, all right, here's a couple $100 million, grow yourself to be a juggernaut now. That's massive.
You're right.
That's massive. But you just got to wait and see. I think it's going to go to one of the big LPs. It's not going to be one of the small guys. I highly doubt.
Okay.
But it takes one thing. It takes one thing.
What about other industries coming into the sector? Like, so tobacco, pharma, alcohol, obvious. Other industries not so obvious. Big cosmetics companies, big, big clothing companies, clothing brands that can come in. Can you imagine clothing that is made from hemp fiber, but is also imparts a CBD into the skin as a general way of, preserving homeostatic health, which is, there's all these, not only, I think, corporate catalysts where there's going to be, corporate invasion of the space, but there's also innovation that is going to come to bear on the whole cannabis industry, resulting in products that nobody's even thought of before.
Not even close. And it's fascinating. One of our partners, Wes Campbell, a good friend of mine from school, he's an industrial engineer at heart, but he does videography, all that kind of stuff as well. But what he works on and has been is hemp. and making hemp composites. So he's made hemp composite hockey sticks, hemp composite lacrosse sticks, and all these different elements with hemp. What people don't realize yet is that we're talking so much about these producers. I'm sorry, a few years from now, there's just going to be a few, and it's going to be a commodity. Right. Cannabis is cannabis. You'll have your craft, you'll have your specialty, but at the end of the day, how many people out there, they, oh, do you have a beer? Oh, do you have Canadian or Coors? How often do you see that? But a connoisseur, they might ask for other things, not to go against those two beers, but the products that are going to come out, we haven't even begun. Open up your cabinets, open up your cupboard in your kitchen, open your cupboard in your bathroom. Half of that could probably be, in some way or form, changed out for a hemp derivative of some sort. In medicine, in oils, in plastics, hemp plastic.
Yeah, I'm curious about, there's this big expectation for a lot of people to replace alcohol with cannabis as a recreational substance. And personally, I mean, I've been consuming cannabis recreationally. I prefer to think culturally almost my whole life. And, there's a time and a place for alcohol, there's a time and a place for cannabis. Sometimes those time and places are one and the same. But generally, having a beer to unwind after work, the interesting thing with alcohol is if you have a beer, you're not instantly drunk. Whereas if you smoke any cannabis, you're instantly high. Yeah. And there's no middle ground. You're not a little bit high. You're either high or you're not high. With booze, you can be like, I feel slightly, a very slight glow, probably not good enough to drive in this era of zero tolerance, but so I really question the uptake of cannabis as a recreational substance, as a substitute for alcohol, because I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think it's the same as like fast food is in, they're in competition with high-end steak place. At the end of the day, both of them, you're eating food, you're satisfying hunger. But clearly, if you want a steak or if you want McDonald's, you're going to go to one of those two places. So it's funny, they're competitors, but they're not direct. They're indirect competitors. And I agree with you, though. You can't just go for a dinner and then all of a sudden I'll have a few tokes and I'll be fine. No, you're going to feel high. Right. But how many people can go and have a glass of wine or a beer and be like, you know what, that actually didn't change me whatsoever. It was tasteful, I enjoyed it. Right. You have two, okay, it's a little bit more. 3, 4, you can pace yourself better. Sure. But it begs the question, is Bruce Linton right? Are these cannabis drinks where it's done with pure THC distillate, where you know exactly what you're putting into it? We're not talking about like one of these drinks I'll get you like, locked into a couch, I was saying earlier, like a couch lock. Maybe it's 2% THC.
So you're suggesting there is going to be a little bit high?
It depends. If you could do it through a drink where it doesn't hit you the same. Edibles don't hit you the same as smoking weed. Smoking weed, it goes right to your head. You feel it really quickly. You're like, oh my, but then you have a crash and you're back down. With edibles, it goes through your system differently. Usually it's more of a mellow. It's more body. It's longer. You got to watch out if it's too much body and mellow, because then you are couch locked.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. You can eat an edible and 2 hours later it starts to kick in, and next thing you know, you're like, hey, I didn't want to be this high now. I wanted to be this high 2 hours ago.
Well, that's the thing. Well, if you look at Wayland's Vezisorb, not to bring up Wayland specifically, but just the actual Vezisorb, the technology, and there's a few of them. I think Vaughan's Growworks is doing as well. Okay.
Tell me about the Vezisorb technology, because I'm not up to date on that.
So Vezisorb is their pharmaceutical brand of CBD. Okay. I'm sure they'll put THC as well, where it goes to your system, so you need a lot less of THC or CBD to have the same effect, if not better, and it's effective within 15 minutes. Whereas when you eat something, usually that takes around an hour. It has to go through all your system and everything. When it's Vezisorb goes right into your system, and it goes really quickly as well. Yeah. But it's not just specific to Wayland, although I do think their product is good. It's one of the reasons why I'm an investor in them. But there's other areas as well that are doing that, where we're starting to look into this thing where we're making it soluble with water. When you do that, it has a different way of ingesting into your system. So you could possibly have a THC that has some sort of system that it gets dissolved very quickly, but have 2% THC drink where it could be whatever they decided to be, and you get just a little bit of buzz. If you have a second one, you'd have a little bit more of a buzz. If you have a third one, maybe there is that gradual state. Yeah. But right now, it's usually longer onsets, and it's a lot harder. But if I want a beer, I want a beer. Yeah. If I'm going to have an edible, I'll have an edible. So I do think they're still different.
Interesting. So what do you think about this idea that there's a camp out there that says it's too late to invest in cannabis stocks?
Absolute foolish.
Absolutely foolish.
Absolutely
okay,
foolish.
so you're firmly in the other camp, but this is the first inch in a marathon, as Sean McNulty said here earlier today.
So there's certain companies that I'm not investing in anymore because I invested in them early. I did very well on this. Just a personal preference of mine. But there's a lot of these second mover advantages and a lot of these companies that are truly undervalued. I was speaking to Cody Karubia, CEO of Weekend Limited, and we had a good talk about this where we were talking about the fact that some of the companies who are going public now, a lot of them have directors and things like that from these first cannabis companies, so that they have knowledge. The research and development phase has already been done. If you look at the business cycle of things, we're now entering the growth phase, or very close to that, where a lot of this, the pain and the time and the money that Aurora, Canopy, and all these ones went through, these new companies, that road's paved for them.
Right.
They know it already. So now they can come to market with so much less money. They've got builders, electricians, all these people who already know, like, yeah, I'm an expert now. I've been doing it for a long time.
Right.
So because of that, it takes them much less to get to profitability. But are they segmented? Do they have a niche? Do they have an advantage? That's still very important. But I'm sorry, we're the first of G20 to legalize this. The first developed company in the world. Uruguay was the only one who beat us at fully legalizing cannabis. You think it's done now? That'd be foolish.
Yeah.
We still have to conquer the world. That's the Canadian economist in me.
That's great. So what do you think about the idea that the Canadians have largely usurped the economic opportunity inherent in the U.S. market because the U.S. can't get its head out of its national ass to make it federally legal?
It blows my mind that a Trump government can look over at Canada and see us monopolizing the world and saying, oh yeah, I'm not going to do anything about it. Yeah. It's truly amazing. I mean, hate him or love him, there's one thing he always goes for is American economy, American jobs, American prosperity. And yet here he is, whether his hands are too tied, I don't know, but he's leaving it to Canada. Where another thing that people always say is look at the valuations of Americans companies and look at the valuation of Canadian companies. I get it. Canadian companies there's a lot baked in there.
Right.
But we can export. We can go to different countries. We can continue to take over these other areas. That makes you more valuable, even though this company might have more revenue and more profit, but you can't leave.
You're right.
America's a massive country, so don't get me wrong, you're great, but you can only be in certain states.
Yeah.
When those handcuffs get uncuffed and they're actually moving forward, which it sounds like they might during these midterms, that I think the Republicans and Democrats are going to fight over who gets to take cannabis into the midterms. It's actually one of the funniest things I've seen in American politics in a while.
Yeah.
But that's when I'll start saying, okay, let's compare evaluations.
Yeah.
Before that, we trump it just simply because, pun intended, just simply because we can export.
Yeah.
And that's going to be huge because all these countries are going medical.
That's key. I mean, look at the UK just opening up, and it's going to be insured, paid market. So anybody who smokes weed in the UK, the government's going to buy it for them, which is, that's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So anyways, I wanted to acknowledge all of our people who are logged into us on YouTube today. None of you have connected with us on our Skype channel at Midas Letter to send us any imagery from some of your stores in BC, the Maritimes, Quebec. Come on, guys, give us some imagery. Go to the store, smoke some product. Let us know how it is. Log on to our Skype channel and let us know what's going on. I want to acknowledge some of the interesting comments going on here. Jeremy Girdler says, laws ruined it. Which is funny because Ed and I were sort of sharing the same opinion in a joking way. I mean, it used to be great to sneak out and smoke a doobie behind the dumpster out back and worry about the cops and everything. Yeah. That's gone now.
Now you can just go outside.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's
depending on what province, of course.
Yeah.
Or Markham. Don't do it in Markham. You're going to get in trouble.
Why? What's happening in Markham?
Markham outlawed it.
Markham outlawed cannabis.
Markham outlawed outdoor cannabis. Outdoor smoking of cannabis.
Really?
I don't know how they can supersede Ontario.
So that's a municipal bylaw, obviously.
That's a municipal.
And
Markham just came out with that this morning or yesterday.
Could probably just ignore that, and they would have to,
take it to the courts of Ontario.
Yeah, and then you challenge it, and they throw it out.
Yeah, I think that's going to be.
I know, that's ridiculous. So nice try, Markham. Puritanical hypocrisy notwithstanding, you're not going to have much success with that. What do you think about Doug Ford's initiative to privatize the cannabis sales process in Ontario and allow individual private companies to roll out storefronts?
Love it. I love it because he's always been against the LCBO, as have I. Great company, great people, nothing against them personally, but why on earth have we allowed one corporation to dictate to us where, when, and what price we can have our alcohol? There should be an actual market.
Right.
Let the market decide how many stores there are. If we open up too many stores in Ontario, they're not going to get sales. They'll have to shut down. That's the invisible hand pushing the market around.
Exactly.
That's what it should be. There should be regulations, though. I like the fact. Unfortunately, it sounds like they need to go through the Ontario Cannabis OCS. I almost said OSC as well.
I know. That's going to be a tough one.
I had to say the words out to remember what it was.
Yeah.
But it is smart going through them because then at least they can be the focal point of making sure that cannabis that's going out there is from an LP or at least someone who passed stringent results, because there's a lot of shitty cannabis out there. There truly is. I remember as a kid, I won't say the age, I remember smoking weed though and it would turn blue.
Huh.
And I think back, and I never thought, at the time.
You would turn blue or the weed would turn blue?
Both, depending on how big the toke.
Right.
But you look back though and you think of it, how many people were lacing it with microbuterol and all these other, if you're some person who does not care about human life, and not all gray markets like that, but some people are, and which is funny as well, it's another whole digression that cannabis isn't only a gateway drug, dealers are gateway dealers. That's how that whole system works.
Yeah.
But,
that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, it's a whole other, but going back to you don't know what these people are doing with it. If they're out in a field somewhere and their whole field's going, do you think they're going to be like, you know what, I'm going to take the moral ground and I'm just going to let that die. I'm going to try again next time.
Yeah.
They're going to find whatever chemical they can spray on it, whatever they can do to bring it back.
Right.
And that's what we've had issues with. Even coming into the LPs, we had some issues with certain chemicals getting into our cannabis, and like, did you not know it's completely illegal?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to see that. So that aspect, I like that they have some control. But for these businesses, let them. The market will dictate itself.
Let them do what they want.
No.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in free markets. I don't see, governments typically have a hard time helping themselves from interfering with the free market. I mean, the Ontario cannabis system is a clear demonstration of that. It'll be interesting to me to see to what degree the provincial regulator says, oh, okay, well, if we really want to stamp out the black market, we're going to have to allow more competitive advertising and marketing, because, like if we were to go take a quick look at weed maps here. Oops, I want to leave that page up. Weed maps. Let's see who today is actually actively selling cannabis. So, hi Canada, weed is legal. Toronto dispensary storefronts still open.
Yep.
That are not necessarily legal.
Oh, here we go.
Delivery services. Look at these are delivery services that are not licensed by the province. They are not legal to sell cannabis.
Still there.
And they're still there. So obviously at this point, look at this. There's at least 10 delivery services active in the Toronto area now delivering cannabis. And look at these prices.
An ounce of bud for $100?
An ounce of bud for $100. What's that? Less than $4 a gram.
Yeah.
And they deliver.
I like how they just put that 15% off your first order of food next to all of it.
Yeah, there you go. But so the objective on day one of legalization has not been achieved. Clearly, there is still a robust, illegitimate market, and that's largely to do with the fact that you're not allowing these companies to advertise and go out and market. And if you don't do that, Ontario government, you're not going to be so successful, in my opinion, in suppressing this black market, which has been there for 100 years.
Yeah. No, I don't think so either. And it's interesting because even this site has, I just saw Believe up there, clearly an LP mixed in with ones that aren't. So they just don't care. Whoever this website is not taking it against them, of course.
Weed Maps has been basically the default. If you're a consumer of cannabis, wherever you are in North America, and I think probably the world now, because they've been expanding, but wherever you are in North America, you pull up Weed Maps, it identifies your location and shows you where you can buy cannabis in the area, and it does not differentiate between legal and illegal because it's not selling the weed. It's just showing you where you can get it.
Gotcha.
And that's how they've managed to, stay on the right side of the law.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of a service, Weed Maps is probably one of the most best known, if not the best known, sort of directory of this type of information.
Yeah.
So it's 12:54 now. We're going to come back in exactly 6 minutes, and when we come back, it's going to be Follow the Money Group. So we're not going to roll any commercials or anything like that. We're going to reboot our NDI Tri-Crasher, because that's what it does and that's what it is. So we'll be back in 6 minutes with Follow the Money.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.